All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jarrett Holtz. I got here with me today Ken Sprague. I've been doing a series of interviews with what I call the Men of Iron. These are just guys, some I know, some are famous, some not so famous. They're just people who have an interesting life related to, weight training and bodybuilding and weightlifting. I have I run a website. It's called IronHistory.com. It used to be run by Joe Rourke, who was the IFBB historian. It's been on the internet for over 20 years. I think we're at 22 years now. So it is the largest kind of free archive of this information on the internet. And Ken here has been a member since 2014. He has over 6,000 posts. Ken has maybe the most interesting life I've ever talked to in one person. So I'm very excited to go through it all today. He's been interviewed some other times, and some of the stuff may be repetitive to people who've listened to us or are our fans and friends on Iron History, because Ken's been telling this story in bits and pieces for many years. But it really is a story that I'm going to try to put together in order, and Ken's going to lead us on that. Well, I'll lead us, and he'll tell the story. But I've put Ken in his amazing life. Like, sit down. We've all said to him many times, like, he should write a book. And this is kind of his book. He kind of just telling the story through all these different posts throughout the years. So I want to put together, I've told Ken this on email, but there's that character on from TV of like the Dos Equis commercials where he's the most interesting man alive. And that's kind of what I see Ken as. If he's that picture, when we do this video, I'm gonna put that picture of that guy up because you're looking at the real life version of him right here. He had a crazy life from starting to start off when we were young. He was an athlete, comes from a family of scholars. Then he had he got interested in civil rights based on some of his personal experiences that then moved through his whole life. And then he moved to California. He was the person who put Gold's Gym and made it world famous. Just a lot of stuff. So we're going to go through it all. We can get as much as we can out of this man, squeeze him dry. And Ken, thank you for doing this. So I feel like we're just gonna start off at the beginning. Let's start off like when you were born, and then I want you to hear a little bit about your childhood and tell me about your parents.
Okay.
So go ahead, Ken.
Well, first, let me tell you something that I just picked up in this introduction. Thank you very much for that introduction.
You're welcome.
But 6,000 posts. Now I won't have to think my wife is a little off when she says, "Are you on Iron History again?"
It's a lot of posts. It's
A
a
lot
lot
of
of
posts.
posts.
But anyway, born in Cincinnati, 1945. And I think that date is wonderful in the sense that that was the beginning of many modern movements, civil rights, bodybuilding, that all started after the Second World War. So Golds kind of fits eventually into that picture because it was a time of change and a time of different cultural change, I should say. Anyway,
What was your actual birth date? Like,
July 14th, 1945,
oh, okay,
Bastille Day.
we're coming up. We're coming up. And what were tell me about your parents, what are their names? What is their ethnicity? Where do you come from, like originally?
Well, now on my mother's side, I'm seventh generation Irish, and on my father's side, about the same number of generations Scotch Irish.
Okay.
So, in fact, my grandmother was Annabelle Boone, who was related to Daniel Boone on my mother's side. My mother was a Mahaffey, based on grandmother's marrying a Mahaffey.
Okay.
It's quite an interesting family. You ask about the parents, and
Yeah.
this will come as a shock, I'm sure.
I've
But
been reading a lot about you.
my mother and father used to dispute which one went to school the farthest. Now they're very bright people, but remember they were caught in the depression, etc., and all that stuff, and that changed their life. But my mother always said, that she went through the sixth grade and my father went through the fifth, but he says the opposite as his memory went. So, but out of that family, I mean, lots of deals. My two older brothers, one was a theoretical physicist and a professor, the other a mathematician and biostatistician and a professor, and sister who was into banking. And then there was me that came along 15 years after the rest.
So your parents' name were Homer and Ethel, is that correct?
That's right.
And
Yeah.
then you were one of your brothers was named after that. The other brother was Homer, right?
Homer.
And then you had
And
Donald.
the other brother
Right?
was Donald,
Yeah. And
the
what
one
was your
that you,
sister's name? Something.
Patricia.
Patricia. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Nice.
But
And,
yeah,
and you were your mother was a ballet dancer. Is that correct?
my mother practiced ballet.
Okay.
She always wanted to be a performer. An exhibitionist, I think, is the heart of her personality.
Okay.
But
Maybe you have
with
that and got that from her, would you say, or?
it's funny. My wife mentions this to me. She says, you more so 50 years ago than now, but she says, when you walk by, people just turn their heads. I never realized those sorts of things because I grew up in a household where I had these exhibitionistic, this mother, not my father, that it was a common experience for me. It was just people watched her. I never even realized they looked at me. She was quite attractive and had those behaviors that begets attention, and she knew it.
Okay. So maybe that's where it came from. Did your I know so you and your was it all your siblings or just you and your brother that did ballet dancing also when you were younger?
uh, well, my brother and Homer
Yeah.
and the biostatistician who wanted to be well, he was a professional dancer for a while until he transferred into academics. He was a dancer. I was a dancer. I don't think my sister or Donald ever took ballet,
Hmm.
but my brother Homer would always pull me along to things that kind of compensate for the sort of childhood I had, which I think did wonders for me because I had all this incoming information and I had to discern what reality is really. And a
Yeah.
mother that was a Christian Scientist
Uh-huh.
who did not believe in medicine.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I just
Oh
okay.
yeah, oh yeah. She she died without ever having gone to a doctor for physical reasons.
Hmm.
She was quite nuts. In fact, when my two older brothers, well, I only have two brothers, my brothers were young, and my sister, she was institutionalized for a nervous breakdown. And so they had a tough time. I came along 15 years later, them knowing what they encountered with my mother, they
Seems like we
kind of
all
reached
some
back
all
to
have
help.
that in our family somewhere, huh?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
I can tell you
But
stories
a really
also.
wonderfully sweet person. She was what I would characterize as a Matthew 25 Christian, although she was in a Christian Science, which I considered a sect. But
So did she
which
raise you guys that way too, or?
my sister took after it. None of the guys did, but you can see it seeping out all through life. Like you're a dentist.
Uh-huh.
When I had to go have teeth pulled, I was so afraid of treatment, like the needle. At that time, I think it was Novocaine, it was way back, that I had teeth pulled without any anesthetic whatsoever,
Yeah.
wiggling around in the chair. I was
Right. It's
scared half to
horrible.
death.
Yeah, yeah.
But what was in the back of the head?
Can't
In
get the shit
fact,
out.
when Donna and I were married, the only thing that I was concerned about was having to take a blood test.
Huh. Really?
I
Because you're
was
afraid of
that
the
paranoid.
needle, or because you're afraid of
Yes,
yeah.
needle.
My wife is really bad with needles,
Oh,
also.
I was really bad. I was really bad, just terrified. But such is life.
And what about your father? Your father, he was an engineer, I believe.
Operating engineer, they called him. He was in charge of these high buildings, the big cranes,
Oh,
etc.,
okay.
and heavy equipment. And he would go around with different jobs. But oh, what a hard worker. For all his life, he never had a vacation, and he'd
Wow.
work in the summer when the weather was nice. He'd work from sunrise to sunset and drag into the house. I never realized what effort he put forward, to keep a family together until I had my own.
Yeah, yeah.
But very committed person, very decent person. We used to play, oh gosh, his memory. We used to play pinochle. Older brothers, my sister and I, we'd play pairs.
Uh-huh.
And but when my father played with us, he could remember every card, hands passed, of what was played, and he accused my sister of cheating one day. I'm sure she did. And from that point on, no more card playing.
Really? Well, speaking of, it's kind of an offshoot, but I don't even have I have all these notes, but I noticed a few times you mentioned in articles and things that you play chess. Is that something you
Oh
played
yeah,
throughout your
yeah.
life? Was that started with your father or?
No, I don't think my father ever played chess. It started when my older brothers uh, decided to teach me how to play chess, which I guess I was 6, 7 years old. But tell you how growth periods matter. When I got pretty darn good and could beat them occasionally, they put the chessboard on their lap when we're playing. So we're sitting next, face to face,
Okay.
chessboard on their lap. And mysteriously, a lot of times when I get ahead,
Earthquake.
for some reason they drop the chessboard. At the time, I never understood that. I just got upset, but
Yeah, I come from
what a good strategy.
I was just curious. I come from a family of chess players. My dad is a chess master. He's played his whole life.
Uh-huh.
And my mother is not as good, but she taught chess like for 20 years. She taught after
Yeah,
school chess to kids as like a after school program. That was like her
yeah.
job for 20 years.
Now, my youngest son and I, Chris, we used to play chess constantly.
Gotcha.
He really enjoyed it. My older brother was just sensational at it.
So let's talk about your brother. So you have Homer. Sounds like he's the one who introduced you to weight training. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
He
And
did. When I was, I guess, 10 years old. I have a photo of that.
yes,
Uh,
I saw that. You shared that a little while on Iron History. It's a great photo.
but 10 years old, brought a set of weights home. We were lifting up in the attic, and that started it. And then when we moved, my mother got in on the act, and she would lift. We got a home in another area. We'd lift together. So she was always into
Great.
physical stuff.
Wow,
As a
that's
matter of
cool.
fact, the first person in our family to put the shot, and my son has competed in the world championships. Let me stop there in the shot. But my mother
And you
was
too.
the,
We're very good at shot. Yeah.
was the first one
Really? Wow. And in
at an Irish state track and
1950s?
field meet.
Yeah, 1950s. That must have been pretty unusual.
Oh yeah, she was unusual. Yeah, she was unusual. Like I say, an exhibitionist, but then she'd try anything without, like the shot, the lifting weights. She was quite a card.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I mean, a woman lifting weights is even, God, I don't know what's more unusual. A woman lifting weights at that time or
No,
lifting.
I know.
They're
Yeah,
both
she wasn't
pretty.
any good, but she tried, along with my sister. My sister tagged along too.
Well, okay. And then, so your brother would introduce you to weights in there. And what did that look like? Like, do you remember what you kind of routine you followed or anything? I mean, this is
Oh
weightlifting.
gosh, no. I think what I took away from that really was just picking it up and jerking it.
Yeah.
But I kept it up, and I remember, fifth grade. Oh gosh, I must have been 10 then. Fifth grade, with a couple of friends at the local Friars Club, and we could go up there and play basketball or whatnot. Off on the side room, there was some weight equipment, and so we went in there. And of the three of us, I could easily pick up. It was probably about, let's see, 75 pounds.
Hmm.
I could easily pick it up, and neither one of them could. So that gave me some positive reinforcement too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Keep up this weight training.
That's such a classic story about lifting overhead, right? Because now people lift, they always say, how much can you bench press? But old lifters always talk about, well, you tell someone just to lift the weights, what are they going to do? They're going to try to put it over their head. Like that's the
Yeah.
natural movement of what
Yeah. Or get it off the ground. Yeah. Or
yeah, or
whatever.
deadlift maybe something like
Yeah.
that, you know.
Hmm.
But okay, so you started lifting with your brother. You know, I so one of a lot of the questions I got here, some were just from the flow of your life, but then I also asked Iron History members and a few other members. So this, I believe, question was from Mark Martinez, who you know, who did the Dream Big,
Oh, yeah.
documentary.
Mark's a great guy.
So I reached out to a bunch of people. I thought, just wondering if they had any questions. But he had asked if you thought your older brother Homer was more of an influence to you than your father. Just because we hear about him more when you're talking about him.
Yeah. I think in different areas. My father was a really gentle person. He stuck with my mother for all those years without batting an eyelash, and he kept the family together. Um, I think he had influence on me in those sorts of areas. My brother Homer had influence on me, of course, in weight training and track and field. He got me started in track and field, which I managed to get a scholarship in when I
We'll get to that.
got around to it. But I think different areas, different
Gotcha. Some
impressions
different.
left. My brother is also the stable guy that works for the family and who is deceased now, but he was a converted Catholic and he was really active in the church. So an all around really decent person.
Did he became uh, he became like a speaker or a priest or a parisher or something like that?
No, he was in the just one of the lay people that took an active part in the
Okay,
church operations.
gotcha.
But
Okay.
yeah, he was quite an athlete. National champion all around. I think YMCA championships in gymnastics. He
Oh wow.
medaled in the national distance running competitions.
Wow. And then I
Uh,
think I read that all four of your siblings, or maybe including you, that all three of your siblings, so maybe it was cool, yeah, or was it your parents? I know I just saw you said they all have over 150 IQ.
oh, and in Cincinnati public schools, they give you these types tests. I don't know if they do anymore because uh,
So it's
frowned upon, I think now. But in the old days, you'd get an IQ test and you'd have different skill tests as you went on from level to level. But yeah, we were all tested out. I don't know how they managed to get me through that, but they all tested out above 150 IQ, and that doesn't mean they were all socially stable,
oh yeah,
etc. By
I'm
that I
very
mean,
familiar with the
yeah,
people.
they never had that sort of parenting growing up. To
Okay.
integrate with society very well. For example, you're asking about me in these areas. I had one playmate before I went to school, and that was the girl across the street. And I think I did something wrong, maybe pushed her or whatnot. That was the two times I got to play with her. But when I got to kindergarten,
Mhm.
teacher took me under her wing and got me involved. She must have seen I had no social skills. I'm reflecting, assuming
Yeah.
what she saw. But she would pick me up on a city bus and take me to the museum. And that's where I got started with paleontology, picking up fossils and all. And
Really?
that's stuck with me throughout my life. So I had all these disparate influences. The physicist would teach me things about energy levels when I was just in elementary school.
Uh-huh.
Taught me the rudiments of calculus when I was in middle school. So I had all these different influences that sort of intersected from the madness to the academics to the athletic. But that was, and of course, later on, I would go to different schools. I was student body president, a 3,000 student, all white middle school.
It's right. In middle school. You said
Yeah, and
3,000?
then moved to high school, which was, let's see, there were 7 white kids out of 969 total student body. The rest were black. At that time, we, out of politeness, said colored, but then it's a matter of change through the
Sure,
ages.
sure, sure.
But and there I became class president, so I seemed to
So
get
junior high
along
school
with.
and high school class president. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, in middle school was student body, and
A student body. Okay, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, those were some interesting days.
So you were around, let's go to that time. So you're around in there, and that's also you were also an athlete then as well. It sounds like you
Yeah,
were was track and field kind of the first one. You were weight training and doing dancing, and you started
yeah,
involved in track
and
and field.
boxing little and earlier like gymnastics, but I felt I got too tall. And the same way reason I quit ballet. Imagine now, picture this: ballet tights, which are very tight on the legs, and even at 13 years old, I had size 13 feet. I mean, imagine. So that's why I quit ballet as a teenager.
Gotcha.
The self impression, that looks silly.
Yeah, my son is 12 right now, and he's embarrassed by everything.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
embarrassed.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's fine. So
Yeah.
what so tell me about the track and field because I saw something that when you were 14, your coach took you to a track meet and I think you came in second in high
Yeah,
jump.
I can't remember the exact placings, but the University of Cincinnati coach at that time was Tay Baker. I went with him and a number of the UC athletes up to 100 miles north of Cincinnati to Columbus for the state AAU championships, and I did pretty well there.
Yeah, what I
And
had
then
down was that you had second place in the high jump and discus. But
that seems right. Yeah, that seems right.
what kind of so you're 14 and were you competing against college age kids?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Remember, I was going to say I've been this tall since I was 13, but that's not true. I was 6'2" when I was 13, and now I'm 5'10" and a half.
Was 6'2" your highest? Is that the tallest you got or
Yeah, that's
yeah.
about the tallest. All the kids are all bigger than me. My daughter's 6'2".
Oh wow. So, I mean, that's something else. I mean, that's just by itself. You're 14, compete. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I never heard of something like that, competing against college age kids. So you must have been competing locally and they discovered you,
Oh
found
yeah,
you
yeah.
or
Well,
something like
what the idea was that they kind of wanted me at that early age to come to the University of Cincinnati. That was the general theme. And so Tay Baker, the coach, arranged for me to have a key to the field house to use anytime I wanted to. I'd pull out the hurdles, I'd pull out whatever, the pole vault standards. And in the summer when I, when I had plenty of time,
that. Mhm.
but it was just a great, the great setting again. At that time, we lived right across from the University of Cincinnati's track.
Wow. Well, that's convenient. So all
All
this
these
is
pieces,
coming.
all this serendipity,
Exactly.
seriously.
I know. Yeah. So that's something we're trying to see in your life. You have all these interesting things that happen to you. Is it like how much is it serendipity? How much is it luck? How much is it just intelligence? And it's interesting. And then you were, born with this, this athletic body as well. And then you did, you made it go, grew it with weight training. Well, Ken, looks like I might have froze. You might have froze here. Hmm. Ken, so we had a little technical difficulties, but we started talking about your family and your parents, and then we talked about your mother, and we talked about your brothers and your sister. We talked about your brother and how he influenced you, and kind of how what your brothers and sister went on to, and how intelligent your family is, and how both you and your mother seem to be kind of naturally charismatic, might be a way of putting it. Just people kind of
That's a
look
good
to you.
way.
And then we started talking about your sports history. I think, and your brother introduced you to weight training whenever you were 10 years old. Then we started talking about your track and field, and we were talking
Mhm.
about how it was kind of serendipitous because the field was right across the street, and you were 14 and you went and competed against college kids, and you got a couple second place in that track meet. Uh, and that's kind of where we left off. And then I was saying something similar to this, where all of a sudden you froze there. So we were just finished talking about the track and field and how you were really into that and you won some meets. So in the track and field, were you doing that all through high school too, then, I'm guessing?
I was, I had a kind of broad range of sports activities. Candidly, the ballet, for example, when I was 5 to 13, helped me in all athletics. It certainly helped in the high jump
Oh yeah, I'm
and the
sure.
coordination. But probably my best sport was basketball.
I was
I
about to say,
know,
I know you played basketball also.
yeah.
Yeah. So you played, tell me about your basketball career, because I don't hear much about that. I just see it in passing, kind of.
Well, I started out, I can remember the first game I played in was seventh grade, and I managed to get the ball at center court, turned around and went to the wrong basket to score. But it kept getting better. I spent as much as 5, 6 hours a day just practicing my shooting, et cetera, alone at the YMCA,
Oh wow.
and it developed. I had interesting basketball experience. It tells you how times change. When I after my sophomore year, I was recruited by alumni of the University of Kentucky,
Okay.
Cincinnati, et cetera, close to UK. But the darndest thing, they were willing to give me, I'm trying to give you the growth from seventh to 10th grade here,
Okay,
but
yeah.
they offered me an apartment in Kentucky to stay away from other major college recruiters, play in Kentucky, and then go on to the University of Kentucky. So I'm at the offered a high school. I'll repeat that. That's a long
Yeah,
stretch.
I didn't understand. So I understand they gave you, did they mean, do you mean leave high school sophomore year, or they were trying to save you for when you got to college type?
What they tried to do is keep me secret and close to their vest by offering an apartment
Wow.
in at a high school adjacent to a high school in Kentucky. So I'd finish playing there,
Oh, I see.
have the natural move on when the high school career ended.
Gotcha.
But when I went down to visit that particular place, on the way back, it was, oh gosh, 100 miles away. And I can't even tell you whether it was Lone Jack or Lone Star, something lone about Kentucky. I was sound asleep in the back of the car, and the driver apparently went to sleep. We wound up off the side of the interstate highway in a
Fine.
ditch,
Wow.
and whatever that kind of turned me sour
Yeah.
on
Was anyone
Kentucky.
injured?
No, no injuries, no injuries.
Okay.
Just raised my fear level of falling asleep in the back of an automobile.
Yeah, for some years, probably.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so you were trying to be recruited, but you decided you didn't do that. Is that correct? You started to stick with track more?
No, I still played in high school, but in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And then, of course, track and field that stuck with me, and I boxed.
Yeah, I was about to ask
High
you about that
school,
too. Tell me,
yeah, high school friend took me to the boxing gym, and that started boxing. It's all those different contacts we all have in life that kind of changes your path along the way.
did you compete in boxing at that
Oh
time?
yeah, yeah. I was the local Golden Gloves champion several years, and didn't go to nationals. It happened to be the years that the local group decided not to go to nationals, so I never had that opportunity to get knocked out there. So,
I did see, so I did, I'm not sure what age this was at, if this was in high school, but I did see that you won 63 out of your 64 bouts.
yes, it was about that. At this moment, I honestly can't remember what the exact count was, but I remember one loss and one draw, I suspect, where I had 12 stitches over my eye.
Wow. So were
I
some of those
had
bouts pretty brutal back then, or?
no, it was no more brutal than now,
Okay.
but I really enjoyed boxing, and candidly, I like to meet the challenge. And every time I walked up the few steps into the ring, I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
I'd say fear was the best word. As soon as the bell rang, though, everything subsided. And I was fine.
Yeah, I mean That's what they say. I mean, you can't imagine the adrenaline of that versus,
Yeah.
man, pretty much any other sports activity. I mean, you're going in there trying to basically kill the other guy. I
Well,
mean,
that's it.
top of the
Oh,
kill.
great. Great memory there. I think it was my first few fights. It was for the probably the novice Golden Gloves Championship. But I hear this mother. I'm aware of the audience. I'm aware of what's happening in the ring, and I hear this mother of my opponent. He's trying to kill the guy.
Yeah,
If you like little quips, here's one
yeah,
that my boxing career. I tried to come back after I sold golds.
yeah.
I needed something to do to keep me, structured. So I started boxing again, but mid 30s, I thought, how can I combine this with promotion and have an end result, a positive end result? And first fight back was late 79. I had sold golds in early 79. Late 79, I'm in shape to box. I've got this fight set up. The local promoter says, come on, fight here. I didn't realize what he was going to do. I was all set to
Okay.
fight early in the evening. And, well, he had contacted all the local news stations. And LA is a big market. It's a really big market. I can't remember what call number it was, but one of the local TV stations wanted to shoot it live during 11 o'clock news.
Wow. Okay.
So
Is
what
this your first bout back?
back? This is
Yeah.
my first bout back.
Yeah.
I hadn't fought in 14 years, 15 years.
Mhm.
Great shape, the best shape of my life. Anyway, I was
Yeah.
used to going to bed like at 8 o'clock in this training. Well, 11 o'clock came around. The fight starts. Donna is Well, Donna was about 8 months pregnant, and she's sitting in the first row. And she had never seen an actual fight before.
Yeah. Yeah.
She had gone with me to sparring sessions, etc., but that's all controlled. Anyway, the fight starts, and blood trickling down here and there. No big cuts, just little cuts, but my skin had lost its elasticity in those last 15 years. So a punch with a little
Interesting.
twist
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
create a little cut. The guy sitting behind her, regular boxing fans, she's in the first row there behind, and she hears them yell out, "Kill the old man." She wanted me to be in no more boxing matches.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was against the third rated amateur heavyweight in the country, and I had been training down. I weighed 182. I could never quite get down to 179, which was the
Wait, no.
light heavyweight division at that time.
So
But
what happened in the match? Who won?
it was a draw.
Oh, it's draw. Okay.
Now, 15 years earlier, because of this change of aggression, which I didn't have anymore, I
Yeah.
didn't try to kill the guy in the ring.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it would have been an easy win for me, but I realized that after that fight, that I didn't have it up here anymore
Yeah. It's
to
different.
just march forward and pound.
Yeah. Yeah. Kids and life and responsibilities and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
having been successful, and
Yeah.
yeah, a
What am
little
I
bit of
doing? What am I
everything.
doing? What do I got to prove at that
What am I doing here?
point? Yeah.
I'm happy that Carter canceled the Olympics because in that year, 1980. Otherwise, I would have probably kept going.
Trying to get into the Olympics there. Okay.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So
Oldest heavyweight in the Olympics.
there you go. There you go. So tell me, let's go back to high school. So we got boxing, we got basketball, we got track and field, and you're in high school. And what does your weight training look like? Was that something, because that's a lot of stuff. I guess, was it different seasons? I guess different, like you weren't all doing them at once or,
It did, at that time, coaches generally said, don't lift weights. It'll hurt for example, basketball.
yeah.
I didn't listen very much. I would honestly go in early to the school, which had minimal amount of weights, and I'd lift weights in the morning on the day of a game. Didn't hurt; it only helped. But it
Yeah.
was all that old wives' tale type of stuff. So to answer your question, weightlifting was real year round. I enjoyed weightlifting.
And was that more, because I think it was a little later, but correct me if I'm wrong, that when you were doing in college when you competed in Olympic weightlifting. But were you doing any Olympic weightlifting then? Because a lot of sports lifting, supposed to like for sports, people thought to
Yes.
Olympic weightlift back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was all wrong. I mean, all the weightlifting was wrong. You figure at that time and at that my age, you pick up a weight and that's great.
Yeah.
But luckily, I had that background where my legs were so explosive from ballet, I'm sure, and from some genetics. Come from a very athletic group of cousins and father, etc. But I it just all came together. It's about what I
Yeah.
could say.
And you
And
were
what,
6'3". So when you started, you were like since you started, you say you were 6'3" when you were like 12 or 13.
about literally, I rounded
Oh,
up. I was 6'2.5".
or six
So
two and a half. Or maybe you said that. I might have got that
yeah.
wrong. Were you the one of the taller players when you started, maybe in high school, and then in basketball?
Oh no, I
Oh
went
no.
to a school where I remember the center was 6'10". Ron Lacey was his name, and we
Okay.
had several, half a dozen players taller than me. Uh,
Okay.
but on defense, I played center because I knew how to push and shove a little bit from the weight
Gotcha.
training. Offense, I played what's now called point guard.
Yeah, you see, I mean, up until maybe 1990, you would look at, basketball players and they all didn't look like they had a lot of muscle really. But, now
Yeah,
everyone weight trains. But, so you probably were a little, stood out in that way also.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Did,
I go ahead.
oh, sorry. In high school, you were, we talked, I think we mentioned, you first were, when you were younger, you were mostly all white schools. Then you went to the high school was mostly all black school because of the athletics you wanted to compete with. So I assume, were you the only white kid on the team?
Yes,
Yeah.
on any of the teams. It
Yeah.
was in high school. Well, first of all, middle school, I went to the all white school, 3,000 kids, uh, big middle school. Then in high school, which was in my district, but other white kids would avoid going there. Time of racial segregation, etc. Not in fact, well, in fact, but not in law in that area. But still, in all, the schools were generally segregated. So my district school was this all black school. And I thought, gosh, I'm tired of going. My next step would have been back to the smart kid school that I started in seventh grade. But that took me on a city bus. All these little factors intervened.
Yeah.
And the big sports school was the all black school. And I say all black, and that's exaggeration. There were 969 students in that high school and seven white children. So essentially all black.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you mentioned before that you ended up being class president when you first got there, though, and you were the one of the only white kids. Did you feel like any racial kind of challenge or anything against you, and then kind of turned around since obviously you became popular enough to become class president, or did you always fit in with them? Like, how did you?
I always seemed to fit in.
Yeah,
I didn't recognize anybody that was trying to exclude me. And by that, I don't mean intentionally recognize.
yeah,
I just didn't recognize that sort of thing in life.
yeah.
And in the all white school, I was what they call mayor, which is essentially student body president at
Mhm.
that time. And I got along fine there.
Yeah, yeah.
I was, yeah, it was an interesting experience, but all these different experiences, kind of made me look at life in general as egalitarian, as inclusive.
Yeah,
Uh,
so that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to find your story, but also how it came to be and how much is serendipity and luck, how much was genetics, how much is just your intelligence, and it's interesting. It's this piece together. So, was it in high school when you took the trip to Washington D.C.? Were you still in high school for that?
Technically, it was with high school friends, but I had been kicked out of high school just
Yeah.
recently.
Let's talk about that. So you were, I mean, I know the story, but tell us, why don't you go ahead and tell it?
Well, the story is as accurately as I can portray it in a 2 minutes.
We have time.
Went on a football bus to see football games at high school Rooter bus, etc. On the
Yeah.
bus, sat next to this was with all black high school essentially. Sat next to an African American female, and we held hands. The athletic director got wind of that. All white staff, essentially. Athletic director, the basketball coach, the football coach, yet almost totally black teams except for me and all my classmates. Candidly, I think I was in class only one time with another white student.
Yeah.
So these were all my friends, etc., and acquaintances, and had a really enjoyable time at that school. But the athletic director says we can't have any of that. He got wind of it. I think bus driver.
Did he call you into his office or
Oh
something?
yeah, yeah. Called me and he says you've got to get that, dude. You've got to quit that. And this was football season, but their basketball practice had already started. He says you either drop that or I'm going to drop you from the basketball team. He wasn't the coach. Coach tried to hold up for me, but he wasn't successful. The athletic director had to say. So I said,
Yeah, tell me what happened at that moment. Tell me what you thought of like did you react right away or did you get just angry or were you shocked or
No, I guess more than anything because it was out of context with the way I thought, of course, that this is wrong. I didn't get explosively upset or anything, but I did sort of pull back, hold my own, and said, "No, this isn't right. That's the bottom line. This isn't right." So I refused to follow the dictate. The next step, you're expelled.
they tell you right there or did they like call you?
Nope. Took me to the principal. Got involved the next day. Little Caesar, we used to call him. Very a short, again, white person. And he said, "Well, the athletic director brought this to me. I'm supporting him. I'm going to have to expel you." That's the way it occurred.
So were you expelled or suspended? Because expelled usually means you're not let back in. Suspended is usually this is how I knew it as a kid. Suspended is like a temporary future
Yeah,
leave.
yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe I loosely use that word, but I believe he said expelled. Uh, but I did come back later. I thought, gosh, I want to be back in school. I want, never forget this phrase. I said, "What do you think about me coming back?" I came back into school a days. I said, "What do you think about me coming back to school?" He says, "Well, I'd rather you wouldn't." I'll never forget that response. It's funny to me now, but
Oh,
I
it's
took the
so
meaning.
crazy. The world. I mean,
It's a different world,
I
man.
know, I know.
A real different world.
Yeah.
At that time, that was before a Civil Rights Act. It was just barely after Brown versus Board that supposedly integrated schools.
Yeah. So what did your parents say when you got expelled?
Well, it created about, as I recall, with my mother, of trying to get to that micro detail. It took about 2 minutes, and she says, "Well, your grandmother always said when you're 16 you should get out and get a job anyway."
Was that how old you were? You were 16 at the time, or
Yes, yeah, 15, 16. Yeah, yeah.
so how long were you out of school for?
That was it.
Oh, you didn't go back. I thought so
I
they said
didn't
you were,
go.
oh, you didn't
No,
go.
I didn't go back.
Oh,
When he
wow.
said, "I'd rather you wouldn't," that told me everything I needed to know.
Wow. So you all right, but you then Well,
I had to have been 16. That's right. Now I remember. I had to have been 16. Mhm.
okay. So you're now out of school, 16. And what did you do at that point?
Well, at that point, I've always been good on tests and things. At that time, the local Civil Rights Commission was trying to pool minorities into different all skills occupation patients, craftsmen type of things.
Yeah.
And I took a test, and even though the goal, of course, was to include minorities, but the tests were open to anyone. Took a test, scored at the top, got a job through that, which was a glazer, if our pronunciation is correct.
What is
But
that? I don't know what that is.
that was my thought too. Any, anyway, it was going up on tall buildings, putting in glass. It was a
Okay.
glass guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also got contacted after that test by floor installation companies, for example,
Okay.
whichever group of companies agreed to this program. But as far as the glazier was concerned, again, if that's the right term,
Yeah,
I'm
I can't
afraid
tell
of
you.
heights. Like, but anyway, I managed to get a job at a machine tool company
Okay.
through through that, and I worked as a machinist for oh gosh, let's see, 3 years, 3 years or so.
So you're like 16 to 19, 17 to 20, somewhere around there.
Yeah, right through there,
Okay.
19 or so.
So then there were two events, I guess, that happened around that time also, that before maybe you went to college, you won, or maybe around the same time, you correct me, but one, you went to DC. It's such a, interesting, again, right
Oh
place, right
yeah.
time. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, two of my friends from high school called and said, "We're going on a trip. You want to go with us?" That's sort of the friendships, the depth of friendship we did develop there. It wasn't just a casual all called. Do you want to go to to DC with us for the march on Washington? And I said, sure. I had never been 100 miles from Cincinnati. I had no idea what this event was about. Anyway, it was MLK's, Martin Luther King's great speech at that event.
Yeah, so it's hundreds of thousands of people. I don't know. They are probably, we've seen the pictures, the whole, area surrounded there is,
Yeah.
I imagine it's quite a scene.
Oh, it's quite a scene. Yeah. It was more of a like a Woodstock
Yeah.
event. Everybody's celebrating happy. I didn't realize the significance of it until much later, because it was just like I was saying, sort of an entertainment, event for me.
Were you, yeah, would you considered yourself like a hippie at all at that time and that type of, I don't know, any of that mentality, free love or just, or just the drugs or the, just any of that. Did you get involved in any of that scene at all in the 60s, stereotype things,
None at all. None at
Yeah.
all. For
And my
example, to give
parents
you,
were.
yeah, I had no idea about that. My parents had no inclinations along that line, and
Yeah.
I had never had well, no, I shouldn't say that. I had a cigarette when I was in the eighth grade, and I didn't like it, and it nearly, and I had never had a drink of alcohol. So, uh, far away from the general stereotypes, and I never had a drug,
Yeah.
but far away from the stereotypes that you'd normally, accrue or that would accrue with a hippie sort of approach.
There were so many people there. Can you actually see or hear Martin Luther King at all?
I really couldn't,
Yeah.
man, loudspeakers, of course, but it was kind of garbled, and I never paid much attention. I was about halfway back on the pond that's in front of the dais, but no, it was more or less just talking to people beside and in front and
Yeah.
etc. Feet in
Yeah.
the water.
One of the comparisons in my mind, I'm sure others, when you talk about all the different events in your life, and we're going to be going through that more, is, we see about Forrest Gump. And Forrest, Forrest Gump had just had all these
I know.
introductions, there is a scene in Forrest Gump the movie where they're at that place. It's when he's giving the speech and
I know, isn't it?
genie comes out on the water, comes on the water and all that stuff. But that
Yes.
didn't happen. But I do believe, tell me, so even though you couldn't really hear it, and at that time, I'm sure you heard the speech later, and the rest of your
Oh
life
yeah.
was, you spent a lot of your life dedicated to civil rights, and
Hmm.
so would you consider like being kicked out of school and going there kind of like something that ignited a flame in you, maybe?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yes, as far as attitudes, etc. I got I thought everything in life, even though I came from, in retrospect, reflection, an unusual environment. I just felt like it was everybody. For example, when all the other white kids went to a school, quote, it would be now a magnet school, technical school, central high school. All the other kids in my, in my neighborhood went to that school. I went to I went to Taft High School, which was, well, the black high school.
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't realize it was segregated like that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it would have made, it did not make any difference to me.
Do you remember hearing the speech later, like in a
Yeah,
video?
oh yes, yes, great speech,
And
great speech.
it's funny, you sent it to me when were preparing for this interview, and and I don't know if I've ever sat through the whole thing before, which I've seen parts of it, of course, in the
Uh-huh.
highlights, but I mean, it's still amazing. I mean, I got chills while listening to it when I sat
Yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah. Just a great speech. It
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
what do you call it at that time? Very progressive,
yeah.
very hopeful, very aspirational, on the speaker's part.
So you did go to college, though. Tell me how that happened between not
Oh,
getting
yeah.
kicked out of high school and
Well,
going to college.
like I say, I'm very fortunate. I realize that if you put a test in front of me, I can analyze the test and I'll score high. What subject or not, of course, I had some understanding of the subject, it helps. But could take a test. I went to the track coach at the University of Cincinnati, kept in contact with me, and I managed to get in what they called at that time the University College. And I had the back. My brother, for example, one of my oldest brothers was a physicist, a and a professor of physics. He taught me calculus, but rudimentary. By the time I got out of middle school, he would send books and then respond if I had questions, via mail. He was much older. He's 17 years older, this one was, than me.
He would just send you calculus books, you said?
Oh yeah, wait. Well, he started with geometry, algebra, etc. Yes, but and I was a sponge, and plus I really appreciated the attention. That was
Which,
part of it.
which brother is that?
This was Donald.
Donald.
Donald. He was a
So
theoretical physicist, and he would tell me things from the time I was little when he occasionally come back to the house. I can remember about 7 years old. He loved to try to, oh, what did it, not pick at me, but teach me, really, to teach me to open my mind. And he was teaching me, trying to teach me about electron orbitals at 7 years old,
wow.
where you go from one level of energy
Yeah,
to
sure.
another level, but you don't pass in between. There's just two discrete levels of energy, for
Yeah, yeah.
example.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I, to a 7-year-old kid, this sounds, it can't be.
Yeah, yeah. Still.
It's like my mother's religion and stuff that she would chatter about.
Yeah.
Very nice woman, sweet woman, but crazy as they come. And she would chat to me about religion and stuff, etc., about fantasy and all, which I interpreted as fantasy.
Even at that
Um,
age, even at that young age, you knew
yeah,
you.
oh yeah. Even at that young age, I thought to myself, "This is nuts." As a matter of fact, soon after that, I told her so. But I had that on one side. I had my brother, and my other brother Homer, who was a biostatistician and was closer to home at that time. They would feed me the other side of the coin of what was reality.
Yeah, yeah.
I had my mother with fantasy, my brothers with reality. I had all these different environmental influences like race, high school.
It's
When I
great
was
that you, yeah, it's great that you had your brothers because you always hear my family, my wife's family, everyone has some crazy, it seems like, and when you're real young, you might not realize, it's at some point you have to realize it, and maybe but it's some you might not when you're real young if that's your reality is just your crazy parent, and so it's great that you had your older brothers kind of
older brothers,
looking
and
out for you that way.
yeah, but I think that whole sequence, or rather dichotomy of
Yeah,
input, caused me to be a much more logical person, and I could look at a problem and address
yeah.
the
So
problem, or whatever you want to
yeah,
call
yeah, yeah. Situation.
it.
Uh,
Yeah,
so you were touched for your track. So you took this, was it a test you took? That's what you were saying. You
took a
went through
test,
a
went
test.
into the University College, which is part of the University of Cincinnati. I think I was, if not the first, one of the very first to be offered any kind of track scholarship. At that time, as a matter of fact, the University of Cincinnati was one of the schools early on that tried to recruit me, and they had been two-time national champions back to back at that point
In track.
in basketball.
Oh, basketball. Oh, okay. Right.
And yeah, so the basketball coach, who was also the track coach for a while,
Okay.
I think his goal, in fact, he stated later, was that I would come to the university and then try out for the basketball team. Track scholarship, but try out for the basketball team.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was a
Okay.
way of getting me back into the fold, because you can't quit basketball. I had quit for a couple of years. You can't quit basketball and come back sharp. You just can't do it unless you're 7 feet tall.
Yeah. Okay. So did they have to get your GED or take a test for that, or you just not graduated?
GED, yeah, took
Yeah.
that, and it's always the case, if a university wants you for any reason, and the fact of life, rules can be bent.
Yeah. We will find, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you are going to college now, but let's go back to that girl whose hand you held.
Well, the girls whose hand I held in the next year and a half or so led to a child on the way.
Yeah.
Um, and that was Ken Jr., eventually Ken Jr. But that's why I had to make sure that I kept up the work. I couldn't accept a scholarship from a different university. It had to be where my commitments to a young family had to be maintained. So I continued, even though on a track scholarship, I continued as a machinist, to make ends meet. As a matter of fact, this is an anomaly too. Um, I bought my first house when I was 19 years old. Uh, I look at rules, and I look at how I can sort of stay within the rules, but on the edge. And I bought the house through the FHA. I don't know if you were familiar with that
Not
program,
so.
but it was a type where the down payment could be relatively low, and the federal government would guarantee the loan that a bank made.
Okay.
Okay. And I was 19 when I went through that process to purchase the house. As a matter of fact, the young woman we talked about that was we were married at that time.
Yeah, let's
Just,
talk. We'll talk about your house, and we'll go back to that in a second. But yeah,
yeah, we just were, but uh, she could not even go with me to see the house, or they would have dropped me, they being the real estate agent.
because she was black.
Because, yes, oh yes, or because I was white and we weren't going into a black neighborhood. but but how did I get around that? Because legally, you cannot contract for property unless you're 21 years old. Now, these were the laws at that time. I haven't looked to see if that's changed,
Mhm.
but I had to be 21 legally
Yeah.
to. They never asked my age.
That's
So
that's wow.
I
Uh,
also I also bought my first automobile that way too. I looked big, I looked old enough, and the car salesman isn't going to ask too many questions.
I was just trying to get into R-rated movies. So, so you let's take it just one step back. So, how old were you when you got into college?
Let's see, 1960. I would have been 21. 21, I think. Yeah,
Okay, and so you're
roughly 21. 21, maybe going on 22.
so before that, your girlfriend, what was her name, by the way?
Melrose.
Melrose, right? Melrose was pregnant. You were having a child, and you ended up marrying her, and you had to tell me what happened with your parents and all that.
Oh gosh.
Bring it out.
Well,
It's
my
interesting. It's very fascinating. I mean,
well, in order to get married in Ohio, you had to be 20 again. You had to be 21 years old or have your parents' consent. In Kentucky, right across the bridge, and just literally across the bridge, you could be 18 without a parent's consent. Well, but Kentucky had anti-miscegenation laws. In other words, you could not engage in an interracial marriage. It's against the law in Kentucky. And as a matter of fact, at that time, it was illegal to marry someone of another race in literally half the states in the country, all of the South, and then bits and pieces elsewhere. So I wanted to get married. My responsibility. That's it. I felt I was responsible. I'm going to follow through on this responsibility. So, what was my choice? I had to sue my parents for guardianship. It's always been I had a keen interest in law. But so and without any animosity on my part, honestly, but they weren't going to let this marriage happen. So I had them sued for guardianship. I had an old teacher from Taft High School fight for my guardianship.
wow. So would you have been able to marry her if you had your parents' permission or
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, yes. Yes. But they weren't going to give it. They were worried about the social ramifications at the time. I never ever experienced a discriminatory thought in their mind growing up. Never even thought about it. That's how lacking in the sort of tension filled racial dynamics of that time and still today. I never even thought about that. Because my father would take me to see the Cincinnati Reds play, and he chatted to everybody, black, white, didn't matter,
Yeah.
sat beside us.
But when
Uh,
it came down to it at that time, it was just
when it
too much for them.
and that started with my older sister. She says, "What are they going to think about me?"
Hmm.
They being the public,
Yeah,
and me being her.
yeah.
And so they weren't going to allow it. They felt that it was going to be a major problem. And at that time, the problem was, well, what about the kids? The kids of this sort of relationship are never going to be successful. And so there were two general motives there,
The
none of which made
kids, like your other siblings or your kids, you mean? What do you mean the kids whenever it's
any child produced from an interracial
gotcha,
relationship would
gotcha,
have no chance in the future.
gotcha.
And
That's
so,
heavy emotional stuff. I mean, and you said
yeah.
animosity, but I guess you had a falling out with your family for some time over that.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see them after this uh, battle. It wasn't a battle. I'll be very candid with you. They never showed up for the hearing. You
Wow.
talk about it would have been an ugly fight, and chances are I would have lost.
Mhm.
But they didn't have the chance to show up for the hearing. The process server who came by the house to notify them of the hearing, I was still living at home. Serendipity, I happened to be outside getting the mail. And I said, Here, I'll take it in. He happened. I'm laughing now. What a darn conniver I was. But
You sure? It's
but
yeah.
and again, I
Wow.
don't say this to justify anything, but I felt I was right. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's your life. It's your life, and they so
it had its ups and downs, but
yeah. Well, now here we are. We are probably so you're like, well, how old were you when your first son was born?
19,
Okay, so
19.
you're 19. Are you
Mhm.
already in college? No, but you didn't go to college till you were 21. So you were kind of just working.
About that, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So you were just
mhm.
working and you got married. Did you have a you didn't have a ceremony or did you have a ceremony?
Oh yeah, very small
Yeah.
at the wife's house. I guess you could call it a shotgun marriage, so that it wasn't you were going to invite
Yeah.
numbers of people.
Yeah.
And in my case, my family or anybody. So
Yeah. How was her family with it?
they also at that time said the kids will never have a chance. That was very interesting to me. But subsequent kids all turned out great.
Yeah. Okay, so then you're working, you're in let's so we're working and then we get into college with our track scholarship.
Hmm.
So you're working, you bought a home, you have a approximately 2 year old, married. So it's a lot of things going on in your life that time.
Oh, a lot of things, a lot of things. Uh, I, one of the most disheartening things, since we're talking in that area, was I talking about tests again. There were 40, um, 40 candidates for management positions in a management program, training program. They were going, the company that I was working for at the time, Arcade Blonde Machine Tool Company, uh, had a training program set up where they would take 40 people from within the company to train them for future management. Big machine tool company. This wasn't a little shop. Uh, Required a test and required, I don't know what else. I found out what else. But at that time, I didn't know what else. I never gave it a second thought because all the guys in the shop we got along great. As a matter of fact, I was the shop union's one of the representative into an in-house shop union. Wasn't one of the nationals. And I scored highest on the test of any of the applicants. Not one of the highest, but the highest on
Mhm.
the applicants. My performance, because whatever I do, I try to go all out. My performance rating, as far as how many widgets you produce or whatnot,
Sure.
also the highest. Yet, of the 40 applicants that they selected to be applicants, 39 were accepted, one wasn't. I later heard from after I filed suit. Now you got to know I put my foot out there. But after that, I filed a suit, or I didn't file a suit. I filed a complaint with the FBI. They must have thought I was nuts, these two agents.
FBI.
Complaint with the FBI. And at that time, this Ohio Civil Rights Commission had opened. That's where I got the job in the first
So
place.
I mean, you're implying, but it's because you were married to a black woman. That's what you're saying. That's same. Yeah.
Rather than imply it was a fact.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you weren't saying it though. I was taking
And
your.
I wasn't saying it. I appreciate you bringing it out and cutting the story short. I do appreciate that.
Oh, okay.
That
Sorry about that.
that was the issue. One of the foremen told me, and the personnel manager told me.
Wow.
But that was a fact, and wasn't legal because and this was a novel sort of thing because usually the civil rights laws were to protect African Americans at that time. It
Yes.
wasn't to protect someone who was married to an African
Yeah.
American as being the reason for the discrimination.
Yeah.
So that was new. That was
So what happened when you contacted the FBI?
file a complaint. You know, I've been stimulated recently to go back and see how much information I can get through public records acts about that period
Hmm.
concerning me. I'm sure there's some in there that this guy's nuts from legitimate complaint. But I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, I mean,
If you have a
but it never turned into anything. You didn't get the position.
Oh, no, no, I didn't. And that discouraged me. But what really agitated me the most was the decision had to be made within a year. Once you file a complaint, which I did with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission. Well, the PR, not PR, the HR guy at the company met coincidentally met the uh, case manager of my complaint from the Ohio Civil Rights Commission at the barber shop. This was several days after the 1 year limitation had expired. He says, he's telling the truth, exactly what happened. But at that point,
Yeah.
you know, people are people. You
Yeah.
accept them, people. But anyway, I got even. I organized the company because the guys, I got along. There was this
Yeah.
vague stereotype out there that the guys won't accept you. They
Hmm.
should have looked more closely because I organized an international union into the shop at that point.
Huh. And then,
Frankly, that was out of vindictiveness as much as anything else.
okay.
I've learned not to be vindictive since then.
So you got some it sounds like I think we'll get back to some of that in a few bit when we're talking about golds, but all right, so you made this union, so you got some rights for I guess for your fellow workers.
Exactly. International Association of Machinists. Yes.
Wow, okay. Um Before we move on there, were you also, so you're in college, you're trying to do all these things, you're super busy. Were you trying to get into the Olympics for shot put, was it? Or
Yeah, that was my goal. And at that time, you have to put it all in context at the times. At that time, the Bill Nieder, I forget how he pronounced his name, but he had the world record, something like 65 feet. And it's coincidental, but I was throwing 55, 58 feet. And I thought, if I have the time, and this is when I've got all these other activities going, if I have the time to train, I think I might be able to make one of the three uh, U.S. Members of the team for shot putting. But it fell apart. It fell apart. Just didn't have the time, the energy, and 2, 3 hours sleep a night.
wow. And I think, so did you lose your scholarship that you had there too because of how busy you were?
Yes, that was also a time when sort of the family was breaking down. I could make an excuse that it's all these external pressures, but it wasn't. It was internal. So Mel and I split up, and still always with the kids. The first thing I did when I moved to California, which was make sure that the two kids could come out, get them
Okay.
out of that Cincinnati environment.
Wow. So you have all this going on, you're busy with work, your school is not working out because you're too busy. You have kids, you're breaking up with your wife. And is this around the time when you got a friend, something, I guess how did you get involved with the Colt studios? And you got, I guess, what you tell me about. So was it right in that time when you first got kind of a lead for a job as a model?
It was right in that time. I was training at the Cincinnati YMCA, and at that time, remember those times are so different. At that time, uh, I'm sure I had a number of gay training partners. By training partner, I mean in the gym at the Cincinnati Y.
Yeah.
They were all in the closet. They were all in the closet. I had no idea until later,
Hmm.
until they said, hey, we liked those pictures we saw.
So
But
your
anyway,
friends sent your friends partners sent pictures to them, or
a friend, one of the guys at the YMCA, sent a picture when I had won the Mr. Cincinnati to them. And I had never ever heard of Colt Studio.
I think we skipped
And
that. This is Mr. Cincinnati. Well, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, won the Mr. Cincinnati, and this fellow named Eugene Espino, he's gone now, so I can mention his name. But he was a timpanist for the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. And he knew I was having problems, and he said, "Hey, I know how you can make some money if you want to try it." Remember, I had never been 100 miles from Cincinnati. He says, "This group from saw your picture in New York. We could get you there. You can make money, and get some return on all the effort of being in a gym all
Yeah,
those hours and years." And so I took the bait, went to New
never been to
York.
New York City, so
Oh no,
yeah.
never been there. And incidentally, that was the best shape of my life, coincidentally or serendipitously.
Let's
But
pause on that story just for one sec. Tell me about Mr. Cincinnati. So you were that was something just that was your one, I guess two bodybuilding comp. That was your first bodybuilding competition.
first bodybuilding competition, yeah, my friends at the Y in the weight room
Yeah,
drumming up competitors that you should go in,
yeah,
and it's just so I did based on their push. Practice my posing routine an hour before I went on, etc. Not a serious bodybuilder, but evidently I beat some pretty good guys there. I thought they were good, and I happened to win. But
wow. And that
yeah, that
was
was 67.
1967, Mr. Cincinnati. And so that
Hmm.
makes you 22, 21, 22 years
Let's
old.
see, 45 to 65, that would make me 22 or so.
Okay. Oh, I actually have a note here. You were talking about the Golden Gloves. Yeah, it says you won your heavyweight in 1964 and you were runner-up in 1966. I just saw that written down here. Okay, so you won the bodybuilding competition, and then so let's go back. So now you got this call to go to New York for a
Yeah.
photo shoot with
And it
Colt.
was all a liaison with this timpanist for the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. They didn't call, but they saw this picture and said, "Yeah, get him to New York," and got to New York. Now, I did not know. I have to take this on faith because it sounds so ridiculous. I did not know that these were going to be pictures other than swimming suit pictures.
Mhm.
So, a fourth of the way, half of the way through, I'm standing there, with a cowboy hat, swimming
Love the
suit.
picture, yeah.
Yeah. And uh, so the lead photographer says, "Well, take off your swimming suit now."
Mhm.
And I probably only had a thought of, I took off my swimming suit. Didn't know any, didn't know that was going to come, or I actually didn't think anything about it at the time. It didn't bother me,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. I have this outlook of whatever someone wants to do on their own or for themselves, do it. That wasn't my case, but that was the case. What I was feeling about the, photographer in the setting. Oh, it's all right.
And they're paying you. I mean, right? So this was a good
Oh
money
yes, oh
compared to,
yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't
yeah,
have been there,
yeah. So
New
you got,
York or not.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so you did this photo shoot, and
Well,
you went
if
back.
I might interject, at that later on, when these photos came out, the way they used to distribute them was a little pack of photos, maybe 8 or 10 photos, because the laws are always changing on that sort
Mhm.
of thing. But 8 or 10 photos, and they, sell them around the country via the mail. That's when I realized that some of my friends at the Y were gay because
Okay.
they would say, "Oh, we saw these photos."
Okay. So yeah, I mean that's always been in, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but all, in bodybuilding and just weightlifting history. I mean, this is done back till Sandow days. I mean,
Oh yeah,
photography and nude photography, but also distributed, amongst the gay community. I mean, most photog I don't know most, I don't know enough about it, but a lot of the photographers of physique photographers throughout time were gay men. And then you can look in the ads in old magazines and it's very clear nowadays looking back on it, what the
yes, yes,
audience was geared towards. As far as like you're saying, that's how it's distributed, but it was usually under some guy, the guise of just physique photography or something, because it was illegal
yes.
a lot of the
That's
time
right. That's
to
right.
sell this type of thing at the time. I don't know about your at that time, but earlier for sure it was definitely illegal to have like they considered it dealing in pornography or it was
Exactly,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, at that time, and it
yeah.
was, and they try, and the way of addressing that was slowly, incrementally, like the pictures I took at first, literally just nude shots. There was no goings on or anything like that.
Mhm.
That was definitely illegal. But
Yes.
whether or not just the nude photography
Mhm.
was illegal, that never made sense to me because one of the most admired physiques in history, David, the statue of David,
Yeah.
I don't think he's wearing a swimming suit, but
No. I was just talking about that with my wife yesterday, actually. We're thinking I've seen that like 15 years ago. We were thinking of going back to Italy next year and it's amazing.
it is. Yeah, that whole area is
Yeah.
amazing. It's a little off topic,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's just absolutely amazing. The first time I
Yeah.
walked into the Uffizi Gallery and looked down the hall, see the birth of Venus, I thought, gosh.
Yeah. That's amazing. So you went had your photo shoot, you went back, your friends telling you, oh, I saw you there. So at some point then you got a call to do more and go to California?
Exactly. The Colt studio thought at that time it was just like they had sales like on an even level. And as soon as they pitched that out of me, sales shot up. So they wanted, more photos. And then I got the chance to go to California.
Did what point were you already given the name or did you pick the name? How did the name Dakota come about?
That no, I didn't pick it. No, that was never a nickname of mine, but that I would have put out there.
Oh,
But the owner of Colt Studio, Jim French was his name. That I need a name. I need a name that will cause people to quake. And I'm like now, I'm standing there laughing all along about this. I
uh-huh.
thought, what? That sounds so
Is
ridiculous
that
to
what he
me.
said? Is that what he
Yeah,
said? Since me?
that sounds so ridiculous to me. But that he came up with that name, and
Was he the photographer also? Jim.
no, he was actually an exceptional artist. He started out doing nude sketches, and then he had a friend, a partner, that was a photographer after a while. But his sketches were really what propelled his business initially, and then he went into the model sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got the call,
Uh-huh.
go out to California. Besides having your child, besides that, it seems like your life was very,
Two children at this time.
oh, two children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Son
Okay.
and a daughter. Big
Okay.
Julie.
So you had two children at this time, but besides that, it seems was life kind of overwhelming? I mean, this seemed like a
It was.
rescue line kind of.
Again, it's the internal dynamics along with all the other stuff we've mentioned. Um, I think Mel was just more overwhelmed than me. But I'd get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd go to school, University of Cincinnati. I managed to get home before I had my 4 o'clock shift. At that time, I was working from 4 to 4, 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. so that I could, go to school during the day and on the track team at the time. But I'd get home and at early afternoon, 1 or 2 o'clock. I think Mel was just depressed from the whole situation, but I'd wind up having to cook, etc., and
Gotcha.
feed the kids. And
Gotcha.
I said, this has got to stop.
Yeah.
More than anything for the kids, to my responsibility, always have been. I've always had a real close eye on them.
For the kids. Even at that young age, you felt you were doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I got that from my father, although we never talked. We probably talked 2 paragraphs. He was always at home when he could be at home, but he'd get up at 5 o'clock every morning. He'd be the first one to work. He was always worried because had experienced the depression, etc. And he was in construction, general area of construction. So in the summers, it was dawn to dusk. You take advantage of the good weather.
Yeah.
And so we rarely saw him, we being me and my
Yeah.
mother. I think he was
So
I
you got that
think
work.
he was happy to stay away from my mother as much as he could.
So you kind of get that work ethic from him also.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
So you got this somewhat of a lifeline or opportunity. Do you remember what they paid you for the photo shoot and what they said they're going to pay you to fly out to California? Or I guess you didn't fly, you drove out to California.
I
Yeah.
drove, and I thought, well, gosh, I'll be there for 2 weeks. It coincided with the downtime at the shop. They always took time off
Okay.
to retool, etc. But anyway, 2 weeks, and I wound up staying there forever, or what I thought would be forever, because
Yeah.
candidly, money was rolling in.
Yeah. Do you know what, like, do you remember what they paid you for that and like how that compared to what you were getting paid as a toolist?
I do not remember precisely, but they had arranged for me to stay while I was there with 2 fellows in the Hollywood Hills, 2 really nice guys that became good friends. That has its own serendipitous thing, that location in the Hollywood Hills. But very shortly after, here's something I've never revealed before, but I signed a contract to star in a film, and we can get to how I managed to get all that. But I signed a contract with the Sales Brothers theater chain. They own theaters, and they wanted to get into producing motion pictures. Serendipity. They saw photos of me, interviewed. I signed a contract to do a film that they were working on. It never materialized. The film
This
never
is
started.
outside of Colt Studios?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I was paid $500 a week until principal photography started, which I mentioned never did.
Hmm.
But $500 a week, which is equivalent to about $4,500 a week now,
Yeah.
in purchasing power. And that kept me afloat. And all I had to do, I didn't have to do anything other than once a week come in and have my weight checked.
Really?
In other words, so I didn't balloon up. And
Yeah, when you're
but
looking
the
at
title of the film, the book, it was based on an old book, which was in public domain by this time, called Billy Budd. Or the film was going to be Billy Budd.
Hmm.
And I don't know what to say beyond that.
I don't know. So what was Billy Budd? I'm not familiar with that.
Billy Budd. Sailor. It was based on the sea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that
And
didn't happen.
frankly, I'm going to tell you something here, how lightly I take certain things, and they've panned out great. I never read the book either.
Jump first. Was it shoot first, aim later type of thing?
That's right, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, if it works in the general gestalt of what's going on,
Yeah.
like needed money, etc., sure, I'll I'll do that.
All right, so you're living in California. You're getting paid for them. You're probably also getting paid from Cult Studios, correct? So how does it? And this is how soon after you were there you make enough money that you brought your family out?
Well, immediately I sent money home, home being Cincinnati,
Mhm.
and trying to give you a generally exact number, it was within a 10 months or so.
Okay,
10 months.
so that must have been a whirlwind, just change of life. I mean,
Oh gosh,
California.
yeah.
You're now, kind of this hot guy on campus type thing, sort of.
Kind of thing, because it was a subculture. It was a
Yeah,
real
within that culture, within
although
that.
Billy Budd was going to be marketed to the mainstream.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, the revenue source stemmed from this subculture.
So, but the Billy Budd wasn't pornography, wasn't it?
No, no,
Oh, oh,
not at
oh,
all.
okay. No, gotcha. So you were going to be in an actual movie, but it didn't occur.
Oh, and now I know how
See,
you're
I'm helping
bringing
you.
up memories. You're
Yeah.
bringing how did I get that contract with the Sales Brothers Theater, Gene? Well, I had done a film, again, no pornography, no sex, but it was a film. I can't remember the title, but it had it was a group of drag queens.
Okay. Yeah, I did read about this. I don't know if I have the name of
Yeah,
it, but
put together the film.
yeah.
They called themselves the Guys and Girls Riding Club, but what it was a bunch of drag queens, a drag queen group, all very nice, funny guys as I met them, and all
And
quite.
that was a film also. That
That
was,
was a film,
yeah.
and it played at a Sales Brother theater. So the Sales Brothers saw these.
Gotcha. Ah,
They,
okay.
big crowds played at Sales Brother Theater. They saw that and wanted to take off not drag queens.
Yeah.
They thought, well, maybe this guy has got some appeal.
So were you did you get that film because of your Dakota stuff, or were you like
Yes, yes.
auditioning for things? Were you
Oh
like,
no, 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 no,
no.
no, no. I never auditioned for anything. Actually, I did. I auditioned for a commercial only because they had to get down to final two, and I went with one of the guys that managed his gym for me. This was later, but Dan Howard was his name, and it was for a commercial. Big guy had to be there, big ugly guy. But anyway, Dan got the part, and I don't know why I said that.
Um,
My mind is going here at
no,
sometimes.
it's okay.
Let's
I'm
see.
trying to bring back these memories, so
Yeah.
I'll try to. So how do you? I'm not sure why either. I was just looking at my notes for a second, but uh, so you're bringing your family over. You're starting this. You're in, like you said, this kind of gay subculture, but it's in California and LA, so it's. I mean,
That's
that's
right.
tied in with it.
Way ahead of its time, but even
Yeah.
then there was a lot of pressure because this gang of drag queens, one of the primary participants in their riding club in Griffith Park, horses, was top of the flight banker. And there were lawyers, there were everything. This wasn't just a bunch of I
Yeah.
don't know, these were just everyday people, that had this group together. But anyway, if
But
that
that's
helps.
that's what I'm kind of trying to say is, you're and as we're going to talk about golds in a few minutes, and you talk about also how you got tied in with Hollywood and your
Hmm.
contacts, but it started off because you were in this, this subculture, if you want to call it that, but this gay community, but it was that gay community was probably tied into all parts of everything within
All parts of
in
everything, from
Hollywood, it's
politics,
entertainment,
from politics
yeah,
down to machine company employees, I'm sure,
yeah.
when I look back.
So this is the question. How do how, as a married man, you've had, three wives, how did you find yourself, you said you just didn't care as much as like getting nude. So how did it turn into films and just getting all involved? Like, what did your mindset on
You
that at
well,
the time?
well, There's a great story there. Remember, I was at this time, to put it in context, I was out in California for what I thought would be 2 weeks. Okay. Well, early, and I was staying up in the Hollywood Hills, right on the border of Beverly Hills. I'm staying in shape, but I didn't have a gym to go to at that time. So I do, free weight stuff, push-ups, etc. And I'd run up the hill and back to stay in shape. I knew that would, keep the legs and all. And I ran after every workout in Cincinnati. But so I'm running up the hill, and this dog starts chasing me, recoiling. And this older gentleman yells, Cappy, 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 stop, stop. His dog. So he comes running after me, not as fast, to stop the dog. I've already stopped. He says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Please, I didn't mean to let my dog go. He pulled on his leash, etc." Well, he says, "Let me make it up to you. Please come to lunch one day." So I gave him my phone number. And I thought his name was George Kruger. I thought maybe he had an accent, which I didn't recognize at that time as a New York accent. I assumed he was Kruger. I assumed he was a German actor or something.
Okay.
That's how naive I was. I knew nothing about that
Did
entertainment.
you did you understand that he was probably hitting on you at the time? Like,
Not at the time. I only
oh,
knew that until
yeah,
after he told me.
yeah,
He says he wanted to meet this blonde bodybuilder, running.
yeah.
We became friends. He was almost a surrogate father. I'd go down every morning later on, and I'd have, not every morning, but most mornings, have coffee and then go on about my day. But so he called me after a few coffees, etc. We're talking, got to know more and more about me. One day I get a call. He says, "I have somebody that really wants to meet you." And this all goes to my contacts in the entertainment
And
industry. Sort of
just
Kukor. Go ahead.
so what was the name of the man again? Kruger?
The I thought he said Kruger,
Yeah.
but his name was Kukor, George Kukor, and he was
Yeah.
one of the most successful directors in the history of Hollywood. I didn't know any of this stuff.
So he I looked it up. He'd directed a lot of famous pictures, but he won a Best Director for My Fair Lady, is what I guess is his biggest.
Actually, he didn't win that. They
Oh,
they
really?
kind of isolated him out, but he was the director for My Fair Lady, which won
Oh,
Best Picture. But
oh,
they wouldn't give him the Best Director for same reason I didn't get the job at the machine tool
really?
company.
I feel like it'd be so in Hollywood. You'd feel
Also,
like
yeah, it's
they wouldn't think that.
remember we're talking years ago, and he was open. Well, he wasn't open, but everybody knew that he was gay. I didn't at the time, but
Wow.
everybody in Hollywood did. In fact, that was a time when Rock Hudson was a major movie star. I
Yeah,
mean, the young women out there pining after him, they certainly didn't know that. He had all
yeah.
these,
And a lot of
but anyway, so George calls me one day, Kukor calls me one day, very soon after that initial meeting, says, "I've got somebody here that wants to meet you. Please come on down for lunch." Well, I go down for lunch, and who's there? Now I can appreciate the importance of it. But at the time, I didn't realize what an unusual situation this might be.
okay.
Anyway, it was Katharine Hepburn that
Wow.
wanted to meet
Yeah,
me, one of the stars of all time,
yeah,
which
sure.
I didn't even know. I didn't even know she was a star. But my kind of film was Planet of the Apes.
Okay,
so, so one of the great actresses of all
sure.
time. But why
Famous.
did she want to meet me? Well, she had lived on Kukor's estate, this estate, 9166 Cordell Drive. I still remember that, in Hollywood. Beautiful, beautiful old time Hollywood estate. But she and Spencer Tracy lived on the estate for a while. They couldn't, and it was very secretive because Tracy was a devout Catholic. So, and he was married. Hepburn was single. You couldn't let it get out that these two were having an affair, although I'm sure there were rumors about that.
Yeah.
And this was the great love of her life, Spencer Tracy.
Wow. I don't know. I know they made movies together, but I don't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, I know. And they were living on Kukor's estate. All these little things that people didn't know.
Yeah.
But why did she want to meet me? Now, this is an interesting thing about how experience and connections and
Yeah.
oddball circumstances make sense. Well, the last film together, Tracy and Hepburn, before he died, was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner,
Mhm.
which was a story about an interracial couple that
Right.
in the
Cindy,
South, they
Cindy
wouldn't even
Poitier.
play it. And Cooper said, "Hey, I know somebody that was a real life experience." So she says, "Let me meet him." That was it. That was my gain to. That was just one example. Like
Yeah.
through Cooper, I met like Ava Gardner. Who would you still remember in this day and age? Roddy McDowell. Gosh,
Did they
um,
meet you because I mean that was specifically for Katharine Hepburn, because she had that movie connection and of the interracial, but like all these other stars and a is it just
well,
because I don't know. Were you so like they liked you. You're so it's a
yeah,
trans
they felt
man
comfortable around me.
and you can speak with them. So you were kind
Yeah,
of this dichotomy of this good-looking guy who is kind of maybe becoming a star in his little niche, but then at the same time that you could hold conversations with them because you're a intelligent man, the type of thing. Is they just enjoyed your company or
that was it.
just
And I've often I've spoken to Donna about this in the past, not with the details, but her assessment is, and this is true in my mind looking back, it's not to save myself from myself, but I didn't really want anything from them. And I think they sense this is odd because in Hollywood, you've got books that big of people that want to be movie stars, etc. And
yeah,
I didn't want it. Probably half the reasons I didn't know anything about it.
yeah,
But I think they took me as just a straightforward guy that was different than the times.
yeah.
And so they were interested. And again, parties, you get to meet people, you chat, you converse, you know more people, etc. I well, knew a lot of people, and the heavy hitters in the community.
Did it started out probably because you were like I don't know, you were kind of becoming this kind of star. I mean, like,
Mhm.
so you were like a big star in the gay pornography, right? I mean, like you people knew you from that.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
had yeah
So
yeah
there were a lot of people that were gay in Hollywood, so they probably wanted to meet you, but then you also kind of just spread out from there with just their friends and things like that.
exactly
Yeah.
exactly.
So we're kind of like kind of a I want to say country because you come from the center city, but you were his country bumpkin sort of kind of not really country bumpkin, but you
No,
were
but that's a good way of putting it in a
yeah
lot of areas.
yeah
Just
just
a
you're
kid
kind of
that grew up
naive
in
and you go
a
out there. So going back to the Dakota stuff, like how as you as a straight man, like other straight men, how did you go about taking a step at a time to doing full on gay pornography? Because most straight men would find that what situation would they be in that they would do that? But it could be just a different mindset that it didn't matter to you, or I don't know. What was
Yeah,
your
I
mindset? Was
would
it
candidly,
desperation?
yeah, candidly, I had mixed emotions, not strategy, but mixed emotions. Like I felt uncomfortable. At the same time, I took it generally as I was an actor. This was acting. The rest of my life was the real thing. Much of that, you could equate that to a lot of, I mentioned Rock Hudson, for example. Uh, he, uh, he was the opposite. In a straight film as a major movie star, he was
Hmm.
acting straight, but in
Okay.
real life, he was gay. In my case, it was turned on its head. So, and I hate at times, I hate to have done that, but for multiple reasons. But because of the impact that sort of thing has on your future options. That's
Yeah, made it
always going
harder.
to, did you know?
Yeah, I know. We get,
Yeah.
but at the time, it
It
was
was necessary.
it was
At the time, it was
necessary. You were making
necessary.
money, but you were getting lots
Yeah.
of benefits from it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so I when I was doing research to this, I reached out to David Chapman, David Chapman is the author who wrote Eugene Sandows' biography, and he's on
Uh-huh.
IronHistory occasionally. But he's also gay. So I thought, so he's a historian, but he's also, so I was just wondering if he had any insight or questions that he would ask that I would be able to think about
Mhm.
or know
Mhm.
about at that time. So this is one, and I did see this quote, and I had to look up, we'll see what it meant, but I'm going to ask you the question because, and maybe it says, in the annals of erotic film, your name will forever link with Rick Cassidy, and some have even called you the Nelson, Eddie, and Jeanette McDonald of gay
And Jeanette
porn.
McDonald.
Yeah. And he goes, he just wondered if you ever maintain any relationships, emotional or otherwise, with any of your co-stars in any of the films? Like, did you have friendships or relationships with any of them? And so I had to look up the Nelson Eddy and Jeanette McDonald. I guess they were a couple from like the 30s in movies, and they were a big couple. And I guess you had this, whether it's acting or whatnot, you had, I guess, a lot of chemistry with this Rick Cassidy. So
Well, I
that was his
wouldn't say
question.
chemistry, but we were connected together in a couple of
Okay, I mean,
relationships.
I guess he wanted to know like what you were in
But I've heard that
relationships.
quote. Yeah, I've heard that
Yeah.
quote before, and uh, I laughed the first time I heard it. And it continues to make me smile. But I guess it's a good analogy.
So,
If this fellow was in a film, you'd expect this fellow to be there, like Nelson
okay,
Eddy and Jeanette McDonald.
gotcha. And so he said, did you have any like he wrote maintain any romantic or emotional relationships or just friendly relationships with your co-stars or continue to have friendships with any people in that field?
No, no, no.
Okay, no.
Uh, I tried to look up Rick. Uh, uh, Rick Chesnick was Jim Cassidy's real name. I tried to look up Rick many years later just to see how he was doing. Couldn't track him down. I don't know if he's didn't make it or
I
or
don't know.
just what. But that was the most. And let's see. Ooh, no, no.
No, he's not really with relationships
I
like
was about to spill the beans on one of the Golds guys, but then in reference to the question, I thought I better not. I don't want to disrupt his. But no,
yeah,
I
you don't
never
have to,
kept in
anyways,
never kept in contact.
yeah,
I
you don't have to name names, anyone who's not openly talking about it or whatever you want.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. But so actually that's a good segue. So let's talk about we're gonna talk about goals, and then we did have some follow-up questions of how they're related, and then we'll just go straight to all goals talk. But what I meant is another question David asked me was like after you posed for this you got involved in this, it seemed as if there were other bodybuilders that became more comfortable, or he was asking, do you think they felt more comfortable like posing and doing stuff in that field to gain money? Like, did you make it more acceptable in that community, in the bodybuilding community? um,
Yeah, I don't know if it's more acceptable, but again, I think they saw an avenue to support their bodybuilding habit,
yeah.
to put it like that. Uh, One of the things that I'm not sure who they referred to as Jeanette McDonald. I don't know which one of us was Nelson Eddy, but we'll just say Jeanette McDonald came up with the idea of us sending out our own photos, and that's where I think the overlap came through. That was another source of revenue, just to be clear.
What do you mean Jeanette McDonald came up with the so
Referring to Cassidy.
oh okay.
I know it's
Gotcha. I was like, oh, they knew them too? I thought they still,
And the trouble is, I'm convinced that he used to get up earlier than me. He lived closer to the post office and shake the checks out of the. I'm convinced of that.
so you used to make money, own money, selling your own pictures, is what you're saying. That's kind of
Yeah. Yes. Well, I thought, gosh, it's sort of like, oh God, how do I do it? How do I say it? Sure, if it opens up the doors, which Colt did,
yeah.
well, there must be more opportunity along that line. Sort of like when I purchased gold, I never aspired to be a gym owner.
So let's I mean a lot of people have heard your story before, have heard that story, but let's do it anyway. So here you are, you're moved to California, you brought your family over, you're getting involved in Hollywood and in this gay pornography and you're making money, and then you're working out at Gold's. It's just because you were close to it. You just happen to be located close to Gold's Gym.
I did. By that time, I had lived in Hollywood. I had just moved to the beach, and I didn't want to move again. Uh, to backtrack just a little, this the myth of Golds. Uh, at that time, when I went to California, now I was in a gym every day practically growing up, and I saw the magazines on the counter of the YMCA. I never purchased the magazines, but I had never heard of Gold's Gym. The first time I heard of Gold's Gym is when Cassidy saw at the beach. He said, "Come on down to the beach."
Okay.
First, he says, "Let's wait until I forget the time, 12 or 1 o'clock. Then we can sneak into the gym. Won't have to pay." This was 1969. We won't have to pay because the manager leaves for a long time in the afternoon.
Okay.
First time I ever set eyes on Gold's Gym. First time I heard of Gold's Gym. And in
Oh,
fact,
so
remember,
Cassidy brought you in there. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the the point being that Gold's was not known at that time. It had a few
Oh,
mentions in bodybuilding magazines, I came to find out, but never any notice on the national stage or in mainstream stuff. Bodybuilding was still this little thing nobody cared about,
yeah. I mean, it
except
was.
bodybuilders.
But even within bodybuilders, probably Pearl's gym and Vince Stronda's gym were probably thought of more as the place to be at the early time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I went into Vince's once because that was the gym I had heard of, but it was the summer and it was just so hot and uncomfortable.
Mhm. Do you remember interacting or talking to, the infamous Vince Stronda?
I seem to have a memory of him being in there. In
Hmm.
fact, I do have a memory of him being in there, but I don't have any memory of talking with him
Gotcha.
at all. I probably didn't. Probably paid whatever it cost for a day's membership to somebody, and
Yeah.
that was that.
So you were, so you said you snuck into Gold
Hmm.
and just to work out. Was that a one-time thing, or did you become a member after that?
I became a member after that, not immediately after, because I enjoyed working out and sunning myself at the same time. I train at the outdoor weight pit, which is a few blocks south of Gold's Gym, and I can't remember what the day was exactly. Probably an overcast day. I went in and joined Gold's, and from that was also in '69. And from that point on, I was training there. But it was a funny thing because it was just to me, it wasn't a special place. Like I didn't come to California to be in Gold's. To me, the gym happened to be there and a benefit to me as far as my interest in training, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely makes sense. I mean, it was a nice, it was by the beach. That's what,
Mm-hmm.
The pen was not related to Gold's, correct? Like the
No,
outdoor
not
part
at
of it.
all.
It's
No.
not, was that just city run? Was that like leftover?
Yes, it was city run by the city of Los Angeles. The outdoor training had been run out of Santa Monica a number of years before because of a sex
Yes.
scandal
Yeah, yes.
between some nationally known lifters
Hmm.
and some young girls.
Yeah.
So the Santa Monica City Council shut down the weight area there. Well, old
Yeah.
Venice, Venice opened a weight pen in response to that.
And
Not necessarily injured.
it's also kind of how Gold's opened, really. So if from my
Yeah.
recollection is they closed down Santa Monica. The bodybuilders were looking for a place to work out. They worked out at one like outdoor lot, I think. And then I think it moved to an old Vince Tanny gym under like a dungeon. And
Oh,
then
there was that. Yeah, there was
yeah,
the dungeon with the old
Vic
Vic Tanny
Tanny.
equipment. It was
Yeah.
never a Vic Tanny owned gym, but
Oh, okay. Okay. It was
just
just
a place, just a place to train.
Yeah, that's where Dave
at
Draper
Beach.
would write about some of those things. He's written some things going down to the basement in some of his nice writing. And then I guess Joe Gold decided he wanted a place to have his friends work out, and they started building.
That sounds about right. I wasn't there at that time. I don't know
Yeah.
their motives, but yeah, the it little story. I know it's a non sequitur, but as far as the Dungeon Gym, after I'd owned Golds a while, I got a sudden influx of members. I say Waller did. Waller ran the place.
Mhm.
Got a sudden flux of members. I found out why immediately. Someone had backed up the truck to the Dungeon Gym, taken all the equipment in the middle of the night.
Wow.
So that wasn't me.
I was about to
I didn't
say
use that
that.
for the competition.
Do you have any idea who did that?
Have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't think it was looked into very deeply, but I'm
See,
sure that equipment was adorned somewhere.
all those those weight collectors nowadays, they
Mm.
want to hear some lead on
Oh,
what.
now I know. You wanted to find out a good lead on where that
Yeah.
equipment is. That historic stuff.
So you're working out there. Tell me about how you met Ken Waller.
Well, Ken, I met him, I think, around 1967 when I was pulled to judge the Mr. Midwest contest, which included Ken Waller, and other fellows. Cincinnati was always a hotbed of lifting and body, I mean, relative size hotbed and lifting and bodybuilding. And so was judging the Mr. Midwest contest that Ken Waller entered. And that's how we first met.
So you were judging? So you competed in '67, and then right away you were being a
Yeah,
judge.
whether it was 67 or early 68 in the Mr. Midwest, yeah, I judged. Well, remember that the whole promotion around Cincinnati bodybuilding and all was from this collection of guys in the basement of the YMCA that kept weight training going through the Y. So I was one of them, I guess.
Yeah, on a little segue from there, I see that I have a little note here from. So Joe Rourke, as we know, keeps notes about every little detail, everything ever. So we actually have reports from Ironman's Lifting News of some dates. So just for the record, so it was January 29th, 1967, when you won the Mr. Cincinnati. Uh,
Okay.
And then it says, well, we didn't really talk much about this or at all, but on April, so I guess just well, it was the April issue. So I don't know when it actually happened actually, but you won the 32nd annual Southern Ohio AAU weightlifting championships.
Ah,
So
yeah, that seems right.
yeah,
I
and
honestly don't remember those
well,
dates.
that's what Joe Rourke's great for. We had all these
Oh,
details.
he's wonderful. He's wonderful at that.
Yeah. And you actually even have your lifts. So it looks like it was a 250, 235, 300, 785 total. So it's probably a 250 press, 235 snatch, and I think that's the right order, or a 300 clean and jerk.
That would be the right order.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something about that. Do you know what I'm referring to when I'm talking about a power snatch or a power clean?
Yeah.
That was my form.
Okay. Okay. So you were power cleaning 300. I mean, 300's that's an
Yeah.
impressive lift, and you were winning bodybuilding. So it was right around the time you won the Mr. Cincinnati. You were also competing in the Olympic
Yeah.
lifting.
Yeah. I started thinking about powerlifting and all. Uh, I was a good deadlifter, but not much, not as proportionately good as bench press or squat. I rarely ever squatted. I fooled myself and said, well, all that ballet and the basketball, general sports is enough for the legs.
Do you remember what your top deadlift was? Just out of curiosity.
No, I can remember at least what it was, and this happens to be coordinated with Golds when Arnold, Franco, Ken Waller, and I spontaneously started doing deadlift contest.
Yeah.
And I know Franco and I got roughly around two 700 or maybe a little over.
Wow.
Arnold had dropped out before, and then Ken Waller.
Wow.
And I did have a knack for deadlifting,
That's a
but
700
not,
is a
I mean,
knack.
based on the amount of training I did. I remember when I was 14 that I did around 500 pounds.
Wow.
So
And I
all
mean,
that
and
is
with
sort
your
of,
height also, that doesn't,
yeah,
that's also harder. I mean, for you
you
deadlifting at
would think
Franco.
so. And without the power of the legs, something worked, some sort of coordinated effort worked.
What happened? Did what happened between you and Franco at the end there? Do you remember that particular workout? You said you both got up to around 700, didn't you?
Oh no, yeah, no, I don't remember. I don't
Yeah.
remember. I
But
just
still, that's a
remember.
fun for at least for, bodybuilding fans, that's a fun claim to fame to be deadlifting next to Franco, because he's
Oh,
famous for
now
that.
I could say that I beat him and he couldn't talk back at this point, but no, I don't remember.
I don't
I
remember.
don't
Yeah.
remember that. But no, again, that was the sort of thing at Golds. It was real joyful plays. It wasn't predetermined. I'm coming in and I'm going to do curls today or whatnot. It was just a real joyful atmosphere.
We're going to get to that. I do want to talk a lot about that because that's such a part that people love about it. We'll get to that in a second. But just let's just get the story, even though you've told it many times before, about how you bought golds.
Sure.
Let's get that story out there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Like I say, we're training. This was after, for example, that I gave you about Arnold and Franco and all of us doing deadlifts. Bud Danitz, who owned Golds at that time, this was 1972. Bud Danitz owned Golds. He was an antique dealer too. And he apparently, when he moved, I believe, from Chicago to the West Coast, he overinvested along with his antique business, and he bought a home that used to belong to Rudolph Valentino. That was at the beach. And he also bought Gold's Gym at the urging of Dave Sachs, who was a friend of his, I think, back in Chicago. So we get to this
Did they
position.
both buy it together? Dave Sachs and Bud Danis at first?
Dave had a small percentage. I don't know if Dave put up any money, but I know he had a small percentage, a
Mhm.
couple points in the stock, and Danitz had the rest. How they purchased, I'm not sure. But anyway, moving on. That was 1970 when they bought Golds. By 1972, the business was just a money loser in big ways, as it had been for Joe. Joe Gold sold it because it was a money loser. There just didn't see and problems. It's always problems. You got to look after something. So Danitz was losing money, and he needed money in his statement to get a shipment off the boat. He was going to close the gym within 10 days, realign some investments he had, and move his antique business into the gym. So within 10 days, there would have been no more Gold's Gym. I was his last resort, though. Now, there's some technical reasons why he couldn't have sold it at this point. He didn't have the imagination on how to approach the deal. But he walked over to me. I'm training with Waller. I think we're doing curls at the time. And I must have been his last chance. I don't see that he came to me earlier, but he
He
says,
probably went to other people. I
I think so too.
I think I remember a story that John Balick said it was offered to him. Who
Could have
bought Iron
been.
Man later. I think so.
Yeah, could
Yeah.
have been. I know
And
it was offered to Arthur Jones, etc. And he had a magazine ad, a gym in Southern California for sale, productive gym, which it wasn't. But
yeah, so we found this, one of our members found this on IronHistory. We thought it was interesting. This was some years ago, I think, but
mhm,
it's an ad trying to sell Gold's Gym.
yeah,
But it doesn't even say it's the name. So that's kind of how, like, it doesn't say it's Gold's Gym. It's like Southern California Gym, a little
yeah,
picture. So
exactly.
like obviously if Gold's was a name that had like was money in the just the name of Gold's, that would have been on the ad. But the ad
Yeah, you put that on the ad, yeah,
didn't
but it
even
wasn't.
have the name of the gym on the ad, which
Yeah,
is, and we'll show the ad here. I'll put it up, but that just shows how not on the map it
yeah.
was at that
But
time.
anyway,
Yeah.
so Danitz came over to me and he says, I understand you got a little money. I had never spoken to Danitz. We were at Waller's wedding together. Uh, there's a picture of us there,
Dude, you
but I
shared
had
that
never
picture. I'll put
spoken
that
to
up
him.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had never spoken. Anyways, Waller's first married, I think. I think first. But anyway, Waller was getting married. I hadn't spoken to Danitz. But anyway, Danitz came over to me as we're doing this set of curls. He says, the gym's for sale. Can I sell you the gym? Out of the blue, literally out of the blue. I didn't even know the gym was for sale.
Yeah.
And he says, otherwise, I'm going to have to close it. And he admitted that. And I said, well, give me a little while to think about it. I'll give you an answer soon. I turned to Waller when Danitz left, and I'd already calculated I don't want the inconvenience of finding another gym, and I knew the property was worth something. I didn't know how much of the property would go along with it. I had to get those specifics, which I got. Anyway, I turned to Waller and I said, you know, if you'll manage the gym, I'll buy the gym. Waller said, sure. So I go over to Danitz. I said, based on the particulars, we got a deal. And so the deal was this fabulous Gold's would become Gold's Gym and 600 franchises later. $15,000 down, and assume my mind now somewhere around $55,000 in debts. Well, the debts were mortgages on property.
Mhm.
So essentially, all I had to hand over was $15,000, for which I purchased the debts, of course, which were mortgages on property.
Yeah.
It happened to be the building, the business, the building that the gym was situated in, the house next door to that, and another lot next door to the house. So it turned out 3.5 lots, a block from the beach, two buildings, for what at the time was, for me, wasn't worth worrying about the $15,000. So the deal, happened just like that. I think we consummated it in a
Wow.
week, and that allowed Danitz to get his antiques or whatever he needed to do. But one of the reasons I found out, and this has never been mentioned before, one of the reasons I found out that he could not sell it to anybody else was Joe had a lien on the equipment. So in order to sell the gym, someone would have to pay enough to take the lien off the equipment. Well, the lien included the equipment, the building, the whole bit. So I guess around $40,000. And for what Joe stuck his nose in there just to get a little extra payoff, you see.
Yeah.
But Danitz didn't want to do that, and I wound up with the gym
Wow.
through,
All right. So now we have this gym. All of a sudden, you weren't planning on having gym. We got this gym. Ken Waller is gonna run it for you. You're still doing your other businesses on the side.
Mhm.
Um, and what did you sit down maybe with Ken or just yourself and start to develop like some type of business plan or like thoughts? I mean, maybe not so formally, but like how did Ken start turning into a profitable business?
Well, remember now, Ken Waller had essentially complete control. In other words, I didn't stick my snout into it.
Really?
But what Ken did, well, first of all, when I bought the gym, I assumed I was going to have to float the gym for a while. But I looked down in my little finger calculation while I was walking back to Danitz. I knew what was happening in property because I owned a little property by that time in Venice. And I could, turns out, accurately assess how the property was going to escalate the value in time. So I thought I'd have to float the gym for a while because it wasn't making any money.
Yeah.
Two former ownerships can't make any money. Wasn't known. And I said, Ken, you go ahead and just manage the gym, at a salary. Oh, that's another point. I would never pay anyone running something for me less than I received from it. So we had the same salary. It wasn't much. And which I figured I'd have to funnel back into the gym anyway.
Do you remember what it was?
I think it was around $400 a week. It wasn't, it wasn't get rich money or
Yeah.
anything. And but in Ken's case, he could take care of his cars. He had a car business essentially going. He'd buy a car, recondition it, sell it. We had that vacant lot. Ken could use that to do his cars, and every afternoon he'd go out there and work on his cars. So it was, easy. It satisfied all our needs.
And what did Ken do to Ken to turn around?
Ah,
Turn around?
that was the real key. Immediately, I didn't have to float the business. What? I said, how did I make that mistake? Well, Ken, a good mistake, but how did
Yeah.
I make that mistake? Ken decided, unlike the other owners, to crack down on the members for the membership fee. It wasn't much, $60 or something a year, but most of them either didn't have it or just were practice deadbeats. I don't know which. And so Ken cracked down on memberships immediately. Immediately, the
Started.
gyms would float itself.
Okay.
And one of the problems, I never looked at the uh, any bank documents other than the mortgage documents, which I was keen on when I purchased the gym. No books, no how much is the gym making or losing. It was all based on my just assessment of the situation, generally broad assessment. I want to train here. I don't want to lose place. How much am I going to lose? I didn't want to lose the place as a place to train.
Yeah.
How much am I going to lose? Well, I figured I couldn't be that much. And but Ken immediately cracked down on membership in the gym.
That was
Didn't
that
need
was
a
a good
float.
first step. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
But
you
one of
move into any of the houses there around on the property or?
no, eventually I did because uh, I wanted to rebuild the house next door to the gym. So I did that, moved in there. Oh gosh, how long was I there? Much later. This would be like 74. I did that.
Hmm.
Um, but then sold that. And when I sold other things, it came with the deal. But,
So initially, what did your life look like at this point? Meaning that Ken Waller's running the gym, you have your side businesses, but that doesn't sound like that's a full-time thing, filming stuff and
oh
everything.
gosh,
So, and
between
your training, your family, what did it look like at
went
that
through
time?
law school, also
Right.
a law student at that
Wow.
time. Uh, also,
So you went to law school, huh?
oh yeah, which was beneficial, believe
What were your,
me.
what were your thoughts there about why did you decide to go to law school?
Well, I've always liked to learn different things, and I never fully understood, still don't, some of these decisions in law. But I wanted to learn about the law to help business in general. I never wanted. I very quickly knew that I didn't want to represent other people.
Hmm.
Uh, the torts teacher, first day of class, the question was to the class of hundreds of students, who do you go after in a lawsuit? Gave a couple of examples. His comment, you go after the deepest pockets. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not the way I want to be in life. I started getting that drift from that day on, but I don't like to quit anything. So I continued, the contracts teacher. This is off the topic of this, but it's probably a very interesting story that caters through life. The contracts teacher says, everybody will get something out of this. He had a real estate contract, buyer, seller. Who does the contract protect? Who does the contract really design to protect? Well, It's neither the buyer nor the seller. Top priority is the real estate agent. So if the buyer seller drops out, real estate agent still has a finger on the funds or an escrow or wherever. But that sort of approach, it just didn't appeal to me.
So how did you, I mean, we're going to get back to gold in just a minute, but so you got into college, not finishing high school, and then you didn't finish
Uh-huh.
college, correct? Either.
And I got it. That's right. I got into law school
Yeah.
without finishing college.
Yeah. How did you do that?
Again, in California, looking around and knowing rules, if you could pass a 2-year equivalency test, 2-year college equivalency test, you could gain admission into law school. That was the bar. That by bar I don't mean
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean the bar. Uh, anyway, so I did great, on the test again,
Yeah.
and I think I had to take the law school admission test, and even there I was in the 99 percentile on that test. Got into law school without a college degree, just like I got into college without a high school
Yeah.
diploma.
Did you
Uh,
pass the bar, or did you go through all law school and pass the bar later
Went
on?
through the whole thing, yeah, and but I never practiced for other people. The only time I get involved in litigation is civil rights litigation, like I'll sue the local school district, which I have on a number of occasions, that sort of thing.
Wow. So, do you always represent yourself when you're doing those things, or?
When I'm doing those things, I do. But when I'm involved in any sort, have been involved in any sort of litigation, I adhere to the general principle: only a fool represents himself. And I hire attorneys. As a matter of fact, while owning Golds, I had nearly a full-time attorney later on. In fact, he worked for me full time. When I engaged in the AAU and
Yeah, we'll
etc.,
get to that.
started contests.
Yeah. So let's get to, let's talk a little bit about the fun stuff about golds. This is what people, your story is fascinating, but we also are, a lot of us are, my website, ironhistory.com, we're weightlifting,
Yeah,
bodybuilding
yeah,
fans.
yeah,
And, people love this era of Gold's Gym in California from all the just, like, if you would ask a lot of people, even nowadays, like, where would they want to be transported back to and lift? And golds would probably be the number one thing. And as you
yeah,
mentioned earlier, it just seems like it's a really fun place to be. And, people are just always dying to hear more stories about it, about the characters. And I'm probably hard, to think of individual stories 100%. So I thought a way would be maybe help prompt your memory or at least lead us some places with, for me, just to mention various people, bodybuilding people mostly, and then you can tell me just your memories about meeting them, or maybe the prime story about what you remember about them. And some you might have something good, some might not be much at all. But I thought that might be a good way to us help capture some of the I don't know, stories or antics at that
yeah.
time, or less. And before I do that, though, maybe you want to say a word about just general, like I just put some words into the mouth of people, but maybe you tell me in general what your thoughts are of that era, and then I'll kind of ask you questions about specific
Sure.
people.
And to place it in context, as I saw it, you had this pool. You had to have Joe Weider first with the magazines, and Joe pitched muscles equals success. I mean, that's the bottom line of his emotional push to anyone reading the magazine. I'll never forget this, and this is not meant as a slant or a diatribe, or not diatribe, but condescending. But Joe had two major thoughts that pop out in my head. One statement: the sun will always shine on bodybuilders. And two, and remember Joe was Jewish, so I have to put that in there because I don't know how much of religion impacted this marketing strategy he had. But he said, if you can get them to believe in a virgin birth, you can get them to believe in anything. So he was a real pitch man. Oh,
Oh,
look at his magazine.
yeah,
Everything was bodybuilders are really successful and come to California. We're all laying on the beach and we're all in commercials and movies,
yeah.
etc.
And the girls, yeah,
And the girls, that's right, on the necks, sitting on the neck, and
yeah,
so
yeah,
that was the big pitch. And you can imagine sitting back there, and had I heard about this place in cold Cincinnati in the winter times,
yeah.
how attractive that might be. Same thing for everybody around the country. They believed it.
Yeah, yeah. People came. I mean, you came before. Yours wasn't about that, but you just happened to stumble upon it. But
Yes, that's right.
besides that, it was almost the same story. You hear all these bodybuilders just coming for that dream with $10 in their pocket to.
Yeah, exactly. That dream, not knowing what's going to happen after they got here.
Yeah.
One name particularly, and I really liked this guy. His name was Bill Pettis. Big arms, big
Yes.
arms. That's what we called him. Big arms, Bill Pettis. He got off the bus in Santa Monica, walked down to the original Golds, and all he had with him. Now he was a little off, he had speech impediment, etc., and no social skills other than being just sweet and nice. He didn't have any, no education as far as I could tell. But he arrived at Gold's, took the bus all the way across country. The only possessions he had was in a little, literally probably foot deep paper bag. Not enough to hold shirts or anything, and he had some coins and maybe a few dollars. That was it. So immediately, Big Arms Bill, we let him sleep up in the in the locker room. Uh, Eventually, one of the other guys at Gold's, it's all camaraderie. Dave Dupree gave him a place to stay, but that was he's sort of an extreme example, but not really an extreme example of
Okay, but a
motivation.
good quintessential example, maybe.
Quintessential. That's the
Yeah.
right word. Thank you.
Yeah. So, speaking, actually, one of the first names I wanted to bring up was, and you already mentioned it, is Joe Weider. So you mentioned in the past how, we're going to get into how we publicize golds and put it on the map, but the initial was probably through the Weider magazines. Do you remember one, your first meeting with Joe Weider, and two, do you remember kind of how you guys came to a relationship, or maybe the story about the relationship of how Golds and Weider magazine started kind of having a bigger bond?
Sure, sure. Well, I met Joe at the gym, just a hi is sort of the approach. Never gave him much seriousness as far as impact on my life or impact on the gym. He was in there taking photos with, I think it was Arnold, with Artie Zeller, famous photographer, doing the photography. And that was my first meeting, and very few talks with him. I wouldn't even call them talks, just interactions for the next couple of years. Uh, I'd always tease him when he came in, call him some kind of name, Josephine or
Yeah, and told me that you have different nicknames for a lot of different
oh yeah,
bodybuilders, and you would there was one too. You called both and then both the Weeders. It was Ben Weeder was like Ben Gay. You said
oh yeah,
you
Ben and
like to
Joe
be,
Gay, yeah.
yeah. And so with Joe, was he? This was part of it that we haven't mentioned it today, but you would let anyone do photographs in there
Oh yeah,
just for
sure.
free.
Yeah, I didn't care. Sure, come on in, and that paid off obviously in the long run. George Butler was in there with the writer of Pumping Iron, Charles Gaines, and they came in about 74, and Butler wanted to shoot. In fact, I don't even think he asked. He's over there
just you.
taking still
Oh,
taking still photography.
yeah.
Fine.
Did you ever have a talk with Joe Weider about making it like the official gym for
Oh
everything?
yes. Oh yes. Yes. That came later in 70 in 76.
Oh, much later. Okay.
Yeah, that came later when I started taking control around that time of the AAU Physique Committee. The original, you have to backtrack
Yeah, let's go
just
back.
a little. The uh, the International Olympic Committee had a rule that every sport to be involved in the Olympic Games had to have its own national governing body. In other words, the AAU at that time, which controlled all of the sports in the United States, could not control all of the sports in the United States. It had
Yeah.
to be broken up into individual sports governing bodies. Well, I happened to be there at the right time. Ralph Countryman was chosen as the first chairman or president, me the secretary.
I
And
think
I
we
was,
should. I'm going to interrupt. This is a really important, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves in your story because I want that to
okay.
be kind of separate. Because it becomes involved with how the AEU, and I do want to ask you questions all about
Mm-hmm,
that. But I
mm-hmm.
feel like we're jumping kind of to the end of the 70s there, and I want to kind of concentrate on the first just the earlier years and the
Got
fun
it.
of
Got
there.
it.
So I know that was my fault because I didn't realize the Joe Weider part was related to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do want to talk about that, but I think that'll get us into a whole tangent, and I don't want to
I
skip
got it.
over
Yeah.
the fun part of just various cat. It's all fun, but
It is.
I'm
There were a
trying
lot.
to tell
It
the
was a lot of
story,
fun.
your story. Actually, you know what? Let me just before we go on, I found this quote of yours, and I thought it's a new quote. It's a quote from you from Iron History, and I just thought it was really good. So I'm gonna just read it. It says, Golds at that time operated essentially as a clubhouse of counterculture characters bound together through iron. The antics inside the gym were far, far outside the boundaries of normal. That is the foundation for what made the place fun and different than any place in existence since. Metaphorically, I'm surprised the authorities didn't throw a net over this place. Really. So that's I think that was a good summation of what's going on there, different crazy antics. But what about everyone wants to know about Arnold. So I know you have probably a different, especially later on, different relationship with Arnold, which we'll talk about. But what was your initial relationship with Arnold when you first got there and both working out and that type of thing?
Yeah. Again, I didn't have any reverence for the big time bodybuilders, which Arnold was one. I had first seen Arnold, I think it was 1968, around the time that I went to New York. The trip to New York for Colt Studio coincided with the Mr. Olympia contest being held that year.
Oh wow, okay.
So went to the Mr. Olympia contest. The owners, calm owners, the operators of Colt Studio, knowing that I was a bodybuilder, and I think they were looking for potential
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
filmies.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we went to the show that night. Uh, I seem to remember seeing Arnold from the stage, but here's the issue: I didn't even stay around for the results or anything else.
I
None of us
don't
did.
I don't think Arnold was in the 68 Olympia.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
unsure about that year.
69, I think, is when he lost to Sergio. Uh,
That was it then.
yeah.
That was
Okay.
it.
So 69, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And I only know that he lost to Sergio after the fact because
Okay.
we didn't hang around the whole show. Even then, they got kind of boring.
Okay. Yeah. So that's how you saw Arnold, but then you go to Gold's, and there's Arnold.
Yeah, there's Arnold, and to me, he was just another guy. Remember, I was in a bodybuilding gym in Cincinnati. Now I was at a bodybuilding gym in California, but I had no aspirations to be a champion bodybuilder or a gym owner. So
Yeah.
Arnold was just another guy
When you first saw
to
me.
me, as much as, oh gosh, anybody else in the gym was. I recognized him for his ability as a bodybuilder. He must be the top. He's winning the contest. But beyond that, no. But he was just, I liked him. I liked Arnold. He was a good guy, I thought. He, jovial. at that time, his language was not quite to the par, and mine wasn't either in German. Now, I don't know a word in German, so we couldn't really communicate in any depth. But he was a likable guy.
You guys worked out together sometimes?
Oh yeah, yeah, and sometimes it was a kind of a hit and miss relationship all around the gym. You'd have occasionally workout partners that were consistent. Otherwise, it was pick up here, pick up there, based on time, etc. In
Gotcha.
my case, I couldn't have any consistent partner because I was had too many things going.
Okay. And did you see Arnold, like the way they portray it is Arnold was like the Pied Piper kind of in the gym, like people would follow him, they go to the German restaurant they afterwards, and people would look up to him, and he built this at least in Pumping Iron, he walks in the gym and there's like this energy. Or was that energy always there? Was he just one of the guys, or did you see him as kind of like a leader of the bodybuilders?
I only saw him as a implicit leader in that as his celebrity increased, other guys wanted to ride his coattails. They figured if they're friends and nice to Arnold, that somehow their celebrity status will also increase. For example, I'm sure Arnold didn't shut down these rumors, but if Arnold didn't like you, you wouldn't get a story in Muscle Builder. And that was a lifeblood for a lot of these guys. I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of them would have paid Joe to write an article about them. So, I mean, that was an important thing. So you had this implied power, much of which I don't know could have been true. I don't know. I mean, if Arnold was with Joe, certainly he could, cast some aspersions about a given person, and that might change Joe's opinion on who to have in that magazine.
So the magazines were a huge deal to the guys in the
Oh, the
gym.
magazine were, huge deals. Anytime a new issue came out, there were always guys running from the gym out to Woodland Hills where Joe's offices were. And they'd get one of the first magazines and come back to the gym, and everybody'd be standing around, looking at the magazines. Did I have a picture in there? It's
Okay.
my name on an article. It was
A
just,
huge deal. Yeah.
it's normal stuff, really, if you put it into a general context. How am I being covered?
Yeah, no, that's good to know. It was just that was a question people had, was like how much important that was. What about you mentioned the deadlift story. What about Franco? What are your memories with Franco? Besides later on, I know we'll get to that also, where he was the ad with Gold's Gym and all that stuff. But what were your initial memories of Franco? Comp
Uh, Initial memories.
You may not have a, so I'm going to name some names.
No, I
If
do. I do. I'm just worried whether or not I should. I'll be blunt. I thought he was kind of a moron. To be honest with you,
okay.
Jolly. I mean, Jolly. The only comments he would ever make. I would play tricks on him,
Oh
but
yeah. What type of
his
trick?
only comment was, "You bastard." That was it.
What type of tricks did you play on him?
Well, for example, one of the first machines I bought when I bought Gold's Gym was a universal lifting machine. It had all the different
Yeah,
stations,
sure. Mhm.
and it was a better piece of equipment than anything we had. It soon became the most used machine. But
I feel
anyway,
like I see in the background in Pumping
yeah,
Iron.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
On the one side where the person does bench presses, it's on a lever to the other side where the weight stack was, if you can picture that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm lying down, I'm looking up, trying to bench press, and behind me is the weight stack.
Okay.
Well, every once in a while, if I'd see him start on that weight machine, he'd often do that for warm ups. I'd go over and I'd lean on the weight stack. He never caught on. He
Yeah.
never caught on. He's like, hey, oh, it's a bad day today. As one example. But
Yeah.
that's also an example of the gym. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of tricks.
Thanks, sir. Because yeah, Arnold always talks about him doing that, but that was kind of with throughout the whole gym, people playing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Everybody was playing, and Arnold was often the butt of jokes when he'd
Yeah,
say, when we found out he's trying to be a movie star,
yeah.
people would mimic.
Oh, is it?
Going to be a movie star. Going to be a movie star. Shut up. You'll never be a movie star. That was, candidly, that was my impression, but little knowledge at that time, which
Yeah.
was geometrically expanded in that short couple years before Gold's. I thought this guy could never be a movie star. You
Oh,
can't understand him,
yeah.
right? He had a gap tooth.
Yeah.
His hair was sort of parted in the middle,
Uh,
but he had some good management. He really did. He did really well. I didn't. I got in serious problems with him later,
we'll get
but
to
that
that.
was
Yeah.
because of business dynamics. But I certainly admire who he's become. You know, he's doing all right
These
as a
two.
human being.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I agree. I agree. What about Dave Draper? Do you remember Dave Draper there?
Dave Draper had left before I purchased the gym. He would train at the dungeon. He
Yes.
seemed to, you know, the only time I remember Dave is he was literally crawling up the back steps into the gym. He I
We had a
think,
drug problem, alcohol problem. Yeah.
yeah,
Time.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was
Hold
pretty
on.
much it. And of course, I was with him at Waller's wedding, but other than that, no contact that I can remember. Read about him in the Santa Monica newspaper once that this Mr. Universe had been picked up on the beach because he was on drugs, etc.
Oh man.
It was Dave, and
What
but
was he?
he
He was crawling up because he was like hungover or drunk.
yes, yeah, one or the other,
Yeah. Or
stone,
drugged out.
whatever.
Yeah.
But
Um,
I and that was a time when he was probably had a lot of internal pressure because Joe had brought over Arnold, and you could see from Europe. Joe had
yeah.
brought Arnold from Europe, and you could see that Joe was going to promote Arnold. So Dave was his big
Yeah.
star in the covers, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that created a lot of tension. Dave, of course, sued Joe over
Yes. Not
using
getting
his
paid enough. Right.
photos, etc.
Yeah.
That was settled.
What speaking of it, I guess it's a little bit of a segue, but speak about the drug scene, both just recreational and steroids, and just how open it was at that time. Like because it's the 70s, and also steroids weren't illegal, but that was probably, anywhere, where it was being done, it was probably being done quite a bit there, you would imagine.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, gosh, back in I remember in 1963 when I was lifting, the York Barbell Club came in for their team to compete in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Open, I believe, and we found out about Dianabol. This was 1963,
yeah,
so I
wow.
started taking Dianabol then to see, oh, does this really work? Now, moving forward to Golds, when I got to Golds in 69, 70, drugs were ubiquitous as far as anabolic steroids. There weren't that many. There was Arnold had Primobolan, I think, shipped in from Germany, and there, which is equivalent to Decadurabolin, which you could get in the United States. And we had Dianabol and Anavar. The funniest thing about the drugs being used is nobody would admit to it as
Really?
far as in openly.
Oh, openly, for sure. Yeah,
Openly,
yeah, yeah.
openly. For example, I'll never forget Robbie. I liked Robbie. I really did.
Rod Robinson, yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was great. Uh, but I saw Robbie being injected with steroids in the locker room. I happened to be out at the desk that day. Came in to check around. I said, Robbie, what are you taking? I don't take anything.
Really? Okay. So I knew it wasn't talked about like in the magazines and stuff. I didn't realize
Oh,
even
well, some of the guys still, wouldn't admit it to other bodybuilders,
I
but
didn't realize that. Yeah.
generally it was talked about. Generally it was talked about in the gym. Mhm.
Yeah, but it was still always done like it was done in the locker room. It wasn't done like on the floor even or
Oh, it might have been. It might have been in casual conversation. It might
sure.
have been at the Germans. There
Yeah.
was no prohibitions. It's just that
Yeah, it was
because
just
of the stigma of steroids at that time, uh,
What's it?
Backtracking to the Mr. America competition just earlier, there used to be an interview section.
Yeah,
And one of the questions would always come up, do you take steroids?
really. Okay.
And every competitor would say, oh, I don't take steroids, but you should look out for him. So was that, in the open?
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't realize. I thought it was. Okay, that's interesting. I thought it was. Oh, I didn't know it had a stigma back then. I thought the stigma didn't come until later, especially in that community, because it didn't become legal till like the almost 1990, 89, something.
Yeah, I know the
Yeah,
physician's desk reference said it didn't help you
been doing it. Yeah, yeah,
to
but
gain
I didn't know
muscle.
otherwise. What about? So I'm just gonna move through some names. You mentioned earlier briefly Dave Dupree. What do you remember about him?
Dave Dupree at that time probably knew more about the history of bodybuilding than anybody I knew. This guy was just, he's a very bright young guy, uh, good bodybuilder. In fact, he led one of the elephants in the parade that
Oh,
would come
yeah.
around in 77. He was sitting atop with a turban, and he really felt that he was I think the word is mahout.
Okay.
The controller of the elephant. He
Yeah.
really loved that. But anyway, Dave was a good guy. Dave had interests. He didn't fit in that area of racial segregation, of racial bias. He just couldn't handle it. But he was a
What do you mean he didn't fit? What
caretaker.
do you mean he didn't fit in with that? What do you mean by that?
He wouldn't go along with it. He was
Okay.
just openly, he's out there as far as how he felt. Uh, he was a very aware guy. He later would go on to become not to become, but he later took a job as a caretaker of nunnery.
Hmm.
He had all these different inputs. He grew up in the
That's
Bay
very
Area,
okay.
in bodybuilding, and he didn't have many. And he had a great heart, as I mentioned, with taking Pettis under his wing. Big arms,
Oh,
Bill
yeah, yeah,
Pettis.
yeah, yeah. That's what you
But
mentioned before.
Dupree was a great guy. If you could
Nice,
duplicate him, bodybuilding or society would be wonderful.
nice. On Ken Waller, there's a story. I don't think you ever told it, but you kind of implied it somewhere in our history about Frank telling Franco not to drop weights or something like that.
No, what it really was when I bought the gym, I never read the sales contract even. I went through the specifics, gave it to the attorney by specifics,
Uh,
specific generalities, not the chapter and verse.
okay.
Uh, Along with the purchase came an addendum of what was being sold as far as equipment, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, a list of the equipment in the gym. I never bothered reading that. Down at the bottom of that list was two gyms or two pieces of equipment belonged to Franco Colombo, for which he is to receive a lifetime membership. Okay. I didn't read that. Waller, of course, didn't read any of the documents. Well, remember, Franco at that time was still early in his journey through the United States in English. He couldn't express himself very clearly. Waller demands that Franco pay his membership. That created eternal outs between Franco and I. And I don't think he ever liked Waller after that either.
And these were like, if I recall, these were like two Nautilus pieces that he got for free
These
from
were
Arthur
two
Jones,
Nautilus pieces from Arthur Jones.
a
Jones was
pullover
given
and something.
pullover machines and a dual arm bicep tricep
Okay,
machine.
yeah.
In fact, that pullover was one of the most used machines in the gym.
Hmm.
That was really, I like that machine too. But anyway, that was the deal. So based on my inadvertence, language difficulties, Waller's demands, we created an enemy there.
Okay. So Franco never a fan between you two guys.
Oh no,
No.
not a fan at all.
But okay. And what about Zane? What about Frank Zane? You have any memories on Frank?
Zane was another one. He thought that he shouldn't have to pay his membership.
Hmm.
Now, the only non-paid member was Arnold. Waller felt that the number one in the world, or however he rated, the best, we'll say the best, shouldn't have to pay his membership. Well, I guess Zane, Franco for other reasons, and other guys felt they should. They should have a free membership. So I hadn't talked to Zane tried to get me in one of his contests that he held at the high school. We were as chatty as you can be with Frank. He's
He
not a chatty person.
he's a more serious personality than some of the people there, would you say?
I
Or
think more serious and yes, a more controlled personality. And by that I mean didn't talk much. In fact, when I was talking to Frank, and this is just again, it's my perspective. It's not broad brush anything. Frank's had some wonderful interactions. I think he's had a successful marriage and all that stuff. But when Frank and I were talking, it felt like he was talking right through a person. He didn't even make eye contact, etc. So that was just an odd and in memory I have of Frank. But that was pretty much it. We met later. We met in 2015, and
hmm.
between that initial conversation when he was trying to entice me into getting into his local little contest, he was trying to drum up competitors. That's what he was trying to do, of
When was
course.
this? What year?
This would have been before I owned Golds.
Oh,
This
okay.
would have been like in 71, 70, early 72, sometime around that time when I was still training pretty hard, but my own way.
Yeah, yeah. So what happened? How'd you meet him in 2015?
uh, a fellow bought the rights to the Mr. America contest title, and he was going to try to exploit that title. He invited a number of us, paid our way to, I think it was Rochester, New York. Frank was one of the invitees.
Okay.
That's when I met or reinitiated the contact with Frank.
How did that go?
Oh, it's fine. We're smiling. I've got a picture of it if you're
Uh,
interested.
yeah, I'll
Standing
take it.
aside, no
Animosity.
resentment either way, I would assume.
Did he? So I know, like during Pumping Iron, he didn't want to train there because Golds because he wasn't getting paid, and they heard Arnold was getting paid, so that's why he's not in it really.
There you go.
But was he working at? Did he work out generally at Golds, even though he had to pay for his membership?
I don't know if general is the right word, but he was working out at Gold's off and on. And I think he worked out at home. I'm not sure. He might have worked out with some weights at
I
his
think
junior high was teaching.
during
I'm
Pumping Iron, he was going to Vince's. I think is where he worked.
Vince's. Okay. I
Very.
remember hearing that too. Yeah.
You mentioned Robbie Robinson. What other memories do you have about Robbie?
Well, I thought he was just an excellent bodybuilder, well balanced, etc. He
Amazing.
kept to himself pretty much in the gym.
Hmm.
Uh, I remember reading about Robbie and his paramour. I don't know if they were married at the time or just his girlfriend. I think it was Elaine. I think it was her name. When Arnold was running for governor in California, and there were a lot of stories about Arnold,
Yeah.
off-color stories. And in that article in the LA Times was comments that Arnold tried to entice Robbie's paramour into an illicit relationship. Now, these are not just what I read in the LA Times. As a matter of fact, they tried to contact me to get the dirt on Arnold. This is years later because I had sued him. They think, oh, this is natural.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I declined. I'm not going to deal in that area. I didn't feel he deserved that.
Not specifically about Arnold, but I believe like some comments I read and also just in general, and I think Rick Drayson talked a little about it, was just in Golds at that time, there were just women all the time, and I guess men also coming, and like sex sometimes just happening all over the gym at times, sometimes on the floor, and there would be women coming from the beach, and then there was also men maybe coming in who were hustling at the time also. Was there, would you say that was a big part of the party atmosphere? Was a lot of sex that going on or stuff as well?
Mm, No, I think I'm not saying one time, but I think if you stub your toe real hard one time, you'll remember that forever. Keep your foot out of that position. But those sorts of things did happen, not to the degree that the rumors would have it.
Okay.
Because I can remember a young woman nude. She had been down on a beach. At that time, there was a nude beach, right straight in front of Gold's. And she'd walk into the gym and train a little bit. Those sorts of things were definitely happening. And I remember I remember that happening upstairs in the locker room, but such infrequency that it became, oh yeah, yeah, oh.
Okay, so it was, yeah, so even then, I mean, it happened, but it was just maybe not as frequent as some people have painted a picture.
Yeah, or not as extreme. I
Extreme.
remember reading an article, I can't remember what it was, but it was easy to see that some of the guys supposedly there would build it up just so they'd be quoted, be
Yeah,
a part of the article.
yeah.
But no, it was a joyous atmosphere. We all had fun. Uh, the tension didn't arrive until you say things like pumping iron. You mentioned pumping iron and Zane being resentful, not being paid, those sorts of things. When there was money, the prospect of money to a bunch of
Yeah,
guys that didn't have much money, when the money came into thought, that changed a few relationships.
I'm sure. Yeah. What speaking of money, so these guys all come and they don't have money. Something that's been uh within the iron game for forever, really is kind of, hustling. A lot of men bodybuilders getting paid often by gay men for probably photos to sex and everything in
Everything in between, yeah.
between and in relationships even how much of that was it open as far as maybe some bodybuilders that were gay, some that weren't but were doing it for money, and I don't know, was that a real hush hush? Was it looked as part of the community? I don't know, how was that looked upon? Because also I never read it, but the Iron Game by Carter, which is a fictionalized version of this, probably exaggerates a lot of that. And I don't know, what's the truth behind from your perspective, especially you who, were involved in this gay community, so you probably had some more better even insight than the average guy that was working there and just kind of seeing it on the outskirts.
Yeah. It gave me a catbird seat because I knew both sides.
Yeah.
I knew what was true, what wasn't true. And I knew, just like steroids, if someone came in, I don't use steroids, I could look to this side and find out the truth about that.
Yeah, yeah.
But to answer your question, generally, to start with, um, there was that stuff going on, but among the participants, like steroids, I'm not involved with anything like that. But yes, it was keeping in context again the fact that most of these guys came from parts unknown without skills, meaning the bodybuilders that were drawn to Golds
Yeah.
or Southern California in general, with arriving without skills, resources, or prospects. That was an easy way to keep food on the table.
Yeah.
Not necessarily emotionally easy, but it allowed time for workouts and get a
Yeah.
roof over your head.
I mean, we know how obsessed bodybuilders are,
Yeah,
that they need to just work out and live that lifestyle, but that's not,
exactly.
you need money too.
Yeah.
And
May I stop for a minute?
yeah.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. What did I ask about? So you had a thought, you said.
You ask about the ubiquitousness of
Yes.
gay activity in that community. And now I don't know how, oftentimes, I kid you not, I don't know how much was gay or just certain people just idolize muscle, But for example, Don Peters, I think Don won Mr. America. Um, Don had someone supporting him to the point where this person, known as Dr. Strangelove,
Yes. Yes. I was gonna ask you.
Dr.
Yeah.
Strangelove supported Don, gave him a job at a studio. Uh, in return, now as far I have my suspicions, but but in return, just to watch him train. Now to do that, Dr. Strangelove took a house in the valley in LA's valley, and turned it into a gym. I mean, dip dip bars made out of wood, etc., and full line of equipment, all in this everyday middle class neighborhood,
Mhm.
curtain strong, a place to train, uh, all for Peters. You know, Peters was the only one that trained there.
But there weren't like parties and stuff there, because I feel like we've heard of Dr. Strangelove. There's been some photos, and he's in photos with all the other
Yeah,
bodybuilders.
not at that place. This
Oh,
was
okay.
just for the training. Except when Joe heard about it, Joe Weider, Joe Weider, because this house also had a pool, he did an outdoor area, and you can find that I think in Muscle Builders somewhere, where Sergio, etc., Peters, and all with this at what was called Peters' house.
Hmm.
Everyone assumed that it was a regular home when Joe, again, Joe's fantasy. Here's a bodybuilder. He's been in a couple of commercials. Look at his home with a pool. They're all out there, fantasy,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
all out there having fun around the pool.
Got to find
And
some girls to go there too.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
that's it. But anyway, just as an example of how ubiquitous it was, and how Peters still, competed. So
And his name was Dr. Strange was Jim Larson, correct?
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And you had inferred, I think, on maybe that's what you were talking about, but I think on IronHistory.com you had said something about how how much he was involved in the bodybuilding world. And I'm not sure if that's what you meant within the magazines or something more than that. Meaning, did he have any other involvement in that community besides,
Not
being,
really. Only going to the parties, hanging around
yeah,
the gym, and
yeah.
frankly, the doc, the doc, and I became friends. I liked him. He was a good person. Very strange setup. He was married. Um, Clearly a Christian background, and I say that only from the standpoint of do unto others, etc.
Hmm.
Care about people.
Yeah.
But as far as and he would always want to photograph at the events.
Mm.
And so, sure, by now, whoever wants to photograph, happy about it.
Yeah.
He had to restrict photographers later because it just got too massive. Well,
Was he ever, was he ever interested in you? I mean, you were the top guy in that, the community. It was,
I think he was probably somewhat, but I think he was more interested in the real, the bodybuilder, the competitors. I think there was some of that fantasy going on. But
was
the
the, was the pool table, did he have a pool table, that photos? Was that where Sergio
Yes, yes, as a
with
matter of
his
fact.
arm and holding the pool stick?
Yeah, as a
And he
matter of
shot.
fact, that's where that was taken
Yeah.
at a pool table. For example, get tired of watching Don Peters train, would go over play a little.
Yeah.
Now here it all see how it all ties in nebulously, and it was a small community. When Arnold was brought to California by Joe, Josephine, the Blaster, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, these are the different nicknames. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe asked Peters, can you find some place for Arnold to stay? So initially, Arnold stayed at the
Yeah, I've
Peters
heard
house.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think, I'm not alleging anything about Arnold in this case other than that fact. He's
Yeah.
Arnold. Again, Arnold been around the world. He used to stay at places. I'm sure Arnold was strong enough to do what he wanted to do and not be overly pressured to do anything.
Yeah, and it was like you said, it was just ubiquitous. It was just in the community, and that even before Golds. I mean, you can go
Oh
back
yeah,
to bodybuilders, in the 50s. I mean, Joe Weider had a whole line of magazines geared towards that, and even a lot of the straight bodybuilders and would pose nude and pose for he said
yeah. I
photographs.
just learned. I just learned the
Larry
other
Scott,
day.
really,
Yeah,
Larry
I just
Scott.
learned the other day that the
Yeah.
most famous photographer of that period, Artie Zeller,
Mhm.
had previously been a bodybuilder, but also posed in those kinds of pictures.
Yeah, we saw it
Those
on
kinds of
history.com. I didn't realize that either. But
Yeah,
some pictures of him with Marvin Eder. Marvin Eder, had a wife. He's married for decades. I met him. But he also was in similar pictures. I don't know if he was nude in those pictures, but they were just suggestive pictures, I would say, for the ones
yeah,
that
and
they
that's as
got by
much as you could get away with illegally at the time. There's where law comes back in.
Yeah.
You could only have suggestive sort of poses and all, and with a G string.
Yeah. Yeah. But even before that, like go back to the 30s and 40s and 20s, I mean a G string and like a jock strap they called it was that wasn't even necessary. Like some of it maybe was geared towards that, but then some of it that was just looked more as like at least under the guise of this is how we pose, this is how to look like new like Greek statues, and it wasn't
Yeah.
100%
Well, at least
it
that
was a
was the
combination kind of.
Well, at least that was the alibi.
That's what I'm saying.
Like
That's what
I'll
I'm
tell you,
saying.
Joe
Yeah.
Weider. I can't remember the name of his magazine. Maybe Young Physique. Does that sound like a
Uh,
Weider magazine?
No, it was Your Physique, but
Your
he had
Physique.
that was his original bodybuilding one. There was other ones like Man's World, but that was Reg Park. Adonis maybe was another one, but I don't know if that was his. There was
Yeah.
several
Anyway,
different gay men.
what Weider said about one of them, I can't remember which one, and it probably could broad brush to all of his magazines, was he was definitely trying to appeal to the gay community. We never used gay at that time, the word, but he was trying to appeal to the homosexual community.
Yeah,
He's
I mean, it was a big portion of it. It was business, it was a big portion of the business there.
That's what it was.
It was that and young kids, like teenagers. I mean, those are
Yeah. Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's it.
yeah,
That
that's
was that was the dual market.
you know.
Exactly.
So let's go to some other names. What about Mike Katz? Not later on, but earlier on. What do you remember on Mike Katz being there around? Not
First
yeah,
thing
hang on.
First thing that pops into my mind is Ken Waller describing cats as Frankenstein.
Yeah,
Because they had this big chest and walked around really stiff and looked like the parts never fit. They had been
yeah,
somehow sewn on. And that hairstyle and early loss of hair. I mean,
yeah,
but Waller just tagged him as Mr. Frankenstein. But he was an all right guy. Like you say, early on, I didn't know him very well at all because he would come out and train at the gym and then go back east, like a lot of guys did. They'd come out and train for a couple of weeks on their
yeah.
vacation back east. They would go, or New Bray would go back to France. And New Bray was an interesting one. He had
Also, New Bray would train there. I didn't realize.
he'd come to Golds and then back to. In fact, New Bray, his benefactor who financed him was a fellow named Paco Arce, ARCE. I
Okay.
pronounced it that way anyway. You could pronounce it another way. But anyway, Paco was an heir to a cosmetic fortune, and he financed New Bray's gym in Paris, for example, and flew New Bray all around the world. And when New Bray would come to California, Paco would come with him. So it was kind of a sort of constant, well, at least not remote companionship.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
but I
but
know
it could have been
Arnold.
similar. I mean, because he was married, I believe.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. And
But
Paco was definitely gay.
yeah,
I mean,
it was just kind of the same thing, like just being backed by. So just, I mean, who knows? But they like being around people, and it was mutual relationship type of thing, mutual beneficial relationship.
that's right. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, to tell you how the right word I wanted, how every day it was when Don and I went on our honeymoon. Paco invited us to stop and stay at his home for a while in Spain,
Mhm.
which we did, and we never thought anything about it, honestly.
Yeah.
But later, Paco, to conclude the story of Paco, we got on the outs because I had connections everywhere now. I promised him some Academy Award tickets, so he was in in LA for the '79 Academy Awards, and I had worked it out. Someone would drop them off at the hotel. Paco and Nubray, and I forget who. I think I gave him 4 tickets. Would go to the Academy Awards. Well, something happened. They never got to Paco, and from that point on, oh, there was no way of us ever
That was
being
it.
friends again. This was his big, I mean, Hollywood Academy Awards,
Oh man.
and
Yeah.
I had gone. I used to give my tickets away sometimes.
Yeah. It didn't work out.
That didn't work out. Oh, and I'm sure he thought it was. I don't know what he thought, but
Yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
good.
Yeah. Okay. What about Bill Grant? I know you're friends with Bill Grant. Why don't you tell me about him?
Oh, Bill Grant is just. I use the word wonderful occasionally. Just a wonderful guy. He was always up. If, for example, if always training hard, you could old bird legs, Grant. You got it, bird legs, because we'd always poke fun.
Yeah.
Whatever you could poke the needle a guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Bill
yeah.
was always worried about his calves, which weren't up very good.
Yeah.
But Bill was always jovial, always out there. If I needed someone to step in front of the camera uh, to do a pitch, we had so many, groups coming for photographs and stuff. TV show, 60 Minutes, Tomorrow Show, lots of local stuff, lots of national, international stuff. If I needed someone that could really pitch,
Yeah, yeah.
pitch bodybuilding
Good
in the gym.
spokesman for bodybuilding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In comes Bill. And
Yeah.
I really liked and respected Bill. I really did like him too. He's a good
He
guy.
seems
I still
just
communicate with him.
nice. Yeah, he seems hard. I don't know him, but he seems exactly like you describe. That's
Yeah.
what it's from
He's
the.
gone through some tough times now because of dementia, but
Hmm.
um, still, as best as and he has a great friend that's getting him back and forth at the gym. He still wants to train and have his picture taken, but it's not the same Bill Grant anymore.
Oh, man. I remember big 10 years ago at the AOBS, Association of Old Time Barbell and Strongman in New Jersey, which I had gone to a few times. He was there once or twice, and still that was 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. Um, shoot, maybe more than that, maybe like 15 years ago. But anyway, he still looked good. I mean, I actually, he still has got those
Yeah,
biceps.
yeah. And you feel like you know a guy, you know the guy immediately when you meet him.
Yeah.
There's no barrier there.
Yeah, yeah. I know the type of guy. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in some sense, you're that type of guy also. I mean,
Ah.
but what about Zabo? I'm gonna throw him
well,
out there so we can go through.
well, the first time I heard about Zabo, I intentionally avoided him. That was the time he was managing the gym for Joe Gold, and my friend and I snuck into the gym. Well, with Zabo, it was the manager, so-called manager, and he was off to his 3 or 4 hour lunch every afternoon. But Zabo was a serious guy in a way. He'd bring his books in to read. He could be the epitome if we looked at Zabo of spot reduction, of the fallacy of it. He'd do 1,000 sit-ups or 1,000 crunches at a time.
Yeah. He's famous for that.
Yeah. And
He would
in
also
fact,
do the Roman chair sit-ups where you had that Roman
a
chair.
thousand of
Yeah.
those at a time. Yeah.
And
And he's
Zane and
also
him are famous for that, really.
he's also the guy that gave Jim Larson the name Dr. Strangelove
Oh, really?
because of his relationship with Peters, because of Strangelove's relationship with Peters. And that was at a time when the movie was out, Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Zabo would always be one of the guys that would run to an audition, for example, like Planet of the Apes or whatnot, to get those,
We got those big
or
parts.
yeah, but generally a nice guy. Now he went with Joe, of course, after he lost his job at Gold's.
I was about to ask, so he didn't continue working there when you took over
No,
or
no, no,
yeah.
no. Because remember, if I could sneak in on him,
Yeah.
but no, it was all up to Waller, and I think he had already quit working for Danitz. I think maybe he left Danitz very early on. I don't know, but no, but Zabo was still around. Uh,
What about Danny Padilla?
Danny, I felt was right at the very top of bodybuilding in those days. He had perfect balance, proportions, uh, quiet guy, but for whatever reason, he had to be right on, which is not bad, right on at the day of the contest, which I don't know how often he was. But he
Yeah.
also had the disadvantage, candidly, of height.
Yeah.
If you who looks more, and just to use the word impressive to the casual look, than someone 6'6" or someone 5'2" or so. And Danny had the problem of height. If they're, in that case, I think it's a realistic problem. But if you took photos and compared photos,
Yeah,
which
it's amazing.
essentially bodybuilding is, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a pictorial pursuit. Danny would win hands down, and from my point of view.
No, he was amazing. I mean, great proportions and everything. From what I've heard of him, remember of him, yeah, like you said, he wouldn't. He had these amazing genetics, and there
Yeah,
a few times he really tried to work hard to like be at his peak. I think like
yeah,
1980, Mr. Olympia, maybe 79. Uh, but I guess usually, like you said, either he didn't try that hard because his genetics were so good. Like he can be very better than most people without even trying as hard as he
yeah.
do.
Perfect balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what about Rick Drayson? So Rick, he used to have a website, YouTube, and talked about this time, 10, 15 years ago, this time period. He was, kind of, he liked to reminisce and interviewed people also about this time. And I don't know, what do you remember about Rick Drayson? I know he got involved in some of the pornography stuff also. I don't know, what do you remember about Rick?
Well, that be true. He did. He was
Yeah.
involved in that too, and I doubt that he ever covered that.
Yeah, I doubt it. I don't know.
I
I don't know.
doubt that he
I don't
ever
think
covered that.
I doubt it too, but I don't think he ever, it was known. So I don't know if he hit it. I'm not sure, but it was definitely known. But, I don't know. What
I'll
did you,
take my word on it. He hit
oh,
it.
okay. Okay.
That you can categorically take my word. Yeah. Yes, he hit it. But no, Rick did the original illustration that you have on the front of your gold
That's
shirt
right.
there.
We should, this is a different version of it, but
It's a
yes.
different version. It's a
Yeah.
more stylized version
Yeah.
for modern. Someone had the idea to change it. I never would have, but anyway, Rick, this story's been around a
It
lot.
is, but we should tell it anyway for the record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Waller offered him. Golds didn't have a T-shirt when Waller and I came on the premises, and Waller in a little while said, "Let's get a T-shirt." Waller essentially verbally designed it for Rick. He said, "Let's take the Mr. Clean bottle, use that sort of figure,
Yeah.
and just put barbells in his hand." Rick sketched it up in about, I wouldn't think it took 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And Waller came to me and says, "Well, I decided to give Rick $25 off his membership."
Yeah.
Not knowing whether you'd ever get the money out of Rick anyway, but $25 off his membership. And happy that Rick did that because he was part of the Gold's image after that
In
point.
history. And I think what I remember that story also is that Waller told him to curve the barbell. That was
Yes,
like the difference.
yes,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. Not let the guy be a wimp.
So with how much as far as promotion of goals did you start seeing from so the magazines, you started promoting more in the magazines. So before Pumping Iron, was Gold's already from your efforts, was Gold's already becoming obviously it had a huge explosion after Pumping Iron, but was from like 72 to 77, was there already a big
Big
growth?
growth. Yeah, big growth. There was two stages there. First, when the gym was in its original location, which I eventually turned into a home, or the Santa Monica location on Second Street. I had moved the business to Second Street in order to change the building into a home. But there was an enormous explosion from 72 through the time I sold it. It The first contest promoted by Gold's Gym was the 1972 Mr. Western America. The guest posers were Arnold and Ken Waller. Ken says, well, we'll give Arnold $50 to guest pose. Fine. Ken gave himself $50 too. But, so you could say that Arnold posed for $50
Yeah, there you
for
go.
the show. Now look what he makes now.
Yeah. But so was the promotion not for just the contest, but the growth of the gym, what would you attribute that to before Pumping Iron? What did you do differently? Because I know you always talk about your contacts in both
Okay, I'll tell you
Hollywoods.
exactly how that worked.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of the production managers, and I also put an ad in the Hollywood Reporter or Variety. I can't remember which at this. I could probably track that down, but essentially, if you need a location for a gym, come on down to Gold's. All you have to do is have your star or whatnot, or if it's still photography, your model, wear a Gold's Gym t-shirt. And that just skyrocketed after that.
Really?
We'd get all sorts of Women's Wear Daily, for example. They had 30 or 40 models in the gym on a given day, on one day, to pick up an article using the gym equipment as backdrops. You always need a backdrop rather than just a plain piece of paper as a background.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things. Just an idea. National Geographic included us in their travel edition.
Sorry, hold on. Hold on. Sorry about that. I didn't even know my phone is connected to my computer somehow. Anyway, continue.
Okay, see, I knew the rudiments of marketing and advertising, etc.
How?
I knew
How
that the
did you know that?
media. Oh gosh. Well, first of all, through Kukor, who I mentioned,
Yeah.
I managed to get an agent. So anytime I needed any agency to get on a show or whatnot, I had this agent, also the one that wanted to represent me when I had this contract to star in Billy Budd. Another good example, a gentleman that just died recently, was Spielberg's
Right.
PR guide. All the
Correct.
time that Spielberg was, up until recently, Spielberg was in the movie business. And how contacts work. His wife, Marvin Levy was his name, wonderful guy. His wife was my literary agent. His son, I pulled in, you know how that, I pulled into the business when I needed PR help. So it sort of contacts like that. Now
What do you mean you pulled him in? What is it? I don't know what you
what
mean.
I mean by that is I gave the son a job. I needed to give someone a job. So I hired the son of someone that had helped me and I knew could help me in the future.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
All those
Okay.
quick dynamic thoughts on
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
keep the mold. But I think the primary key to uh, the early acceleration of PR around Gold's Gym was the allowance of any producer that had a legitimate film or TV spot or commercial that needed a setting or even equipment. Come on in, come on down to Gold's. It's free to film here. Now, that's something that they never did in Hollywood.
Yeah.
For example, when I offered the place later, when I had a different gym, I charged $25,000 to $50,000 a day as a location. One of the Rocky films, for instance, when with Drago.
Yeah. We'll get to that later. Yeah. Next time.
But anyway, that was it. Contacts here. I knew writers from the Hollywood Reporter that would say, "Hey, this place is worth seeing." And
Okay. So it was so the guy you just mentioned, Levy, he was a PR agent, and his son you hired. Would he be the one that would be strategizing, or just does PR in LA? They just talk to people, or how did that
yeah,
help?
I could just talk to people and ask for
So,
advice.
okay.
I was in that unique position, really unique position. Levy and his family had nothing to do with the gay side of the business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a remarkable, strong family. In fact, I helped the son once. Well, that's beside the point. But anyway, that's the way it works. And
Okay.
a lot of people that I had met in a continuous chain from knowing George Cukor, expanding in all directions. I met at different parties, at different dinners, people that could and did help me along the way. Some of my early property acquisitions. This was before I owned Golds. Uh,
I mean, how would you know what to do,
I
right?
was going to say,
Yeah.
I didn't have to walk in with a very detailed financial statement. And I knew it wouldn't be checked anyway because of a favor. I
Because you
need a
were friends
mortgage.
with people.
I
Gotcha.
need a mortgage on this, etc. And as I mentioned, the some of the early film producers, this drag queen film
Yeah.
was a major banker. Uh, I remember going in when I wanted to go to Europe in '72, and I didn't have a credit card yet. I walked into the bank. I said, I need a credit card. Diners Club is what I got. Got Diners Club card. He says, I'll get you the card today. We'll fill out the papers later. Those
Wow.
sorts of approaches.
Wow.
So it's a contact. I'll tell you one thing that has come out to me since then. For whatever reason, they trusted me.
Yeah.
Anybody that I did business with, uh, they didn't lose money. No one did. Chris Dickerson almost did later when I went into a camp, and he asked me if he could invest. Had
A
because of my
camp?
wife. Pardon me.
Well, you said a camp?
The athlete's body camp, where you'd have your uh, bones primarily geared to young people, developing athletes, adolescents, parents that want to find out what their kids could do. Maybe
Okay.
take an X-ray of the bones to check out how much growth was left,
Huh.
or at least projected. That sort of thing, and it was a camp designed at San Jose State University. That way, I could rent out the dorms, bring families, kids, fathers usually in from all around the
Wow.
country, and have this camp of really a scientific approach to weight training. Is what it was going to be about,
What year are
basically.
we talking about here?
Now they were talking. That was talking immediately after well, not immediately, a year after I sold Golds. I had
Interesting.
written this book called The Athlete's Body, and so I'd use that as a camp. And later, after that, you'd see bodybuilders trying to have bodybuilding camps.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
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 But that was the first in that
Dang.
area. Anyway, Chris wanted to invest. He invested. camp didn't come off because of Marion, my wife's impending problems.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up? Well, you brought up Chris Dickerson. What would you, how was your, tell me about, about Chris. I know you guys did a film together, I believe, but what was your, I don't know, what was your relationship with Chris? Professional,
Chris,
friendly?
Chris was a real gentleman. He really was a good person. I think his mother was an attorney. He was brought up in an academic setting, an art setting. His brother was a ballet dancer. Chris toyed with operatic
Yeah.
behaviors, and yeah, Chris was just a jewel. Now it's a coincidence, but he had been a Colt studio model before me. Chris and Jim Morris, both Mr. Americas, had been. That wasn't out there. That wasn't out there. As I say, the growth of magazines, et cetera, and all developed later. But the photos, it's funny. One of the photos of Morris was cut off right here, so you couldn't definitely, had you not known, recognize Morris.
Wow.
And there were other photos, but that one was the first.
And Chris was, Chris, they say, he was, they say he was the first openly gay, like bodybuilding champion. Was he openly gay at that time, or was that later?
Well, he didn't broadcast it, but he did. I'm sure he wouldn't deny it.
Yeah.
And if that's open, you just walk, Chris, are you gay? No, none of that.
Yeah.
And one of the things he and Morris had in common, we talked a little bit about how different fellows proceed through that gay community. Both of them they lived into their supporters, not that other members of the community didn't. I know there were Mr. America contestants at that time that you would never suspect or expect to be in that sort of living arrangement. That there were that's quite a number along that line. Again, had a place to live, eat.
Yeah. Like you're saying, Chris was open about that. Is that what you were saying? Yeah.
Matter of fact, that sort of arrangement I had to tamp down at the 76 Mr. California contest. Gold's produced that. We can talk about that. Like, that's some really interesting
We're going to
stuff.
talk about that next time. Yeah.
But that I had to read the riot act to the judges before the show because I could sense what was coming. That there were a couple of people in the show that could have been helped by the judging panel who were in that sort of relationship.
Oh, in a positive way. And you're saying that they would
positively
help
their friends with their friends.
Yeah.
I read the riot act. It's not going to be anything like that. We're having none of that. If I see a bad score, I'm just going to throw it out, which I couldn't do, but they didn't know. And that's why Cal Skalak won the 76 Mr. America, because he won the 76 California after that comment to the judges. He was selected, rightfully so. He should have won the 76 Cal, but with that sort of impetus goes on to the Mr. America. With that sort of momentum, he wins Mr. America.
We'll get to that when we're talking more about the AAU and the transfer and all that next time. On Chris, did you maintain a relationship with Chris over the years, or?
Yes, not at a distance. We didn't run in the same circles or anything. And of course, remember, all during the time I had Golds in all these different discussions, and afterwards, I was married. I was unmarried for a very short period of time between Marion and Donna. But
yeah, we got to talk about.
I had other things to do.
Yeah. With let's just go just a couple more big names and we'll end it for today, just so we can get your opinion. Now, what about Lou Ferrigno? Obviously he was from there, but he came sometimes. Or
yeah, I like Lou is a legitimately good person. Now I'll say that because he acknowledged me in his books, and
Oh, that's right. You could tell that story. I remember that now that you say that. But
Yeah, but no, honestly, he was legitimately a good person, and in fact, he was out for the Gold's Classic. I brought him. I brought let's see, Oliva, Cal, I believe. That current year's Mister America had them all on stage at once for the Gold's Classic. But while he was out in California, at that time, he auditioned for the Hawk, the Incredible Hulk,
yeah,
and it all sort of ties in. All these, when you see
I,
muscles, somehow it comes through golds.
I think the story he told, and maybe it was in his book, or maybe you wrote it. I don't remember. I think I read it in his book. Was what you said, except for the main reason he credits you is that he wasn't there just he was doing that contest, and I think you said he paid you 1,000. You paid him $1,000 or something like that.
Sounds right. Sounds about right. Yeah.
And that he was moving to California. Like that was his goal, and he was going to use that money. And he had no other money to move. So just like all these other bodybuilders we talk about going out to have their dream in
We
California.
needed that 1,000.
Yeah, that was that seed money.
Probably true. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that kind of so that's why I think he was mentioning in his book that was kind of what allowed him to do that, you know. So
I
he's thankful to have that opportunity. What
Oh,
about
I'll tell you a good story about Lou.
let's hear it.
Keep Remember the joking that goes around
Yeah,
at Golds all the time.
yeah,
Anyway, Lou was standing in front of the mirror training. They'd go, always a mirror, always a mirror.
yeah.
And we're standing behind him. This was on in Second Street Golds. He's training away, and we're saying, we'd say, God, dummy, just assuming what? Assuming he can't hear.
Yeah, yeah,
Didn't
yeah,
have
yeah.
his hearing aids in or anything.
Yeah.
Assuming he couldn't hear. You big moron. Whatever
Okay,
we said. We never thought to think, or we never thought to think. We never thought that maybe he could read lips
in the mirror.
via the mirror.
Oh yeah.
So you could pick any one of the guys in there. There's some sort of funny happening around.
Did he respond to you?
No.
No.
He did turn around and say, "Don't interrupt me." But that was it.
Another name people always want to ask about because he's somewhat popular, especially is Mike Menser. You don't hear him much in that age, kind of towards the end of it, but he was there maybe in the he's actually in a blink. We just talked about this Iron History. John Little was on. He talked about this a blink and you miss scene where he's in the background and pumping iron. So what do you remember about Mike Menser being there? Or maybe his brother, right?
Both of them trained at Golds. They trained throughout at Golds, even through all the turmoil and whatnot that would come. But I never connected with Mike. There was something there that I didn't appreciate, and probably vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But trained hard. He trained like he claimed, like this high intensity. There's a good dichotomy there, where Zabo, I mentioned, would do 1,000 reps. Menser might do 12 doing a sit-up with a heavy weight on his back, etc.
Yeah.
But as far as training hard, he did, and he was a little too full of himself, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best way that I could
be serious
describe.
also. He seems
Well,
serious.
very serious.
Yeah.
First time I saw Mike was in Montreal, I believe, Mr. Universe contest, probably. Ben had me come up. We wanted to talk about other things, but then Mike was a constant at Golds.
So he did train. That was the question people always debated whether he actually trained high intensity style that he promoted, his heavy duty, or whether that was or he didn't. I mean, it probably changed over time.
For the life of me, I can't really tell you exactly what heavy duty, high intensity HIIT training is. But if there was such a thing, he did it. He trained very hard, heavy weights, not high reps, but all out every rep seemed to be in that category.
Somewhat related. Did you ever meet Arthur Jones?
Yes, I met him at the 1970 Met him at I met him at a Mr. Midwest contest that I put on in Cincinnati for the hometown guys. And Arthur to me was, I hate to be derogatory, but just, oh, there you go. 77 Mr. Midwest. That's where I met Arthur.
Yeah, you sent this to me a few years ago. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was the contest.
Yeah.
And Arthur just seemed like a dreary alcoholic candidate. Just
Really?
very dreary. And Casey Viator introduced us. He brought Arthur. Casey came over to get me and Arthur, brought us together. I think it was planned. But other than that, I had very little.
Just a little introduction.
Yeah.
What about Casey? What was your marrying Casey in? Because I mean, he was genetic.
Great genetics.
Yeah.
Early growth spurt.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
Early growth spurt. And he used to have a hotel room across the street from Gold's. And so he'd stay there at this Fleabag hotel, but come over and train. And there was talk that he might be going across the street to reinvigorate his stimulation. I'll put it like that. And then he'd come back to train. But other than that,
what does that mean? Like amphetamines or something like that, or some type of
something along that line.
Those lines,
yeah.
cocaine.
Yeah.
And
again, I don't know for fact.
Yeah.
But that was always the rumor. But Casey was a decent guy. I thought, really decent guy. I use decent in a broad range, but a decent guy, a good guy. Good
guy. Speaking of good guys, I think I've seen you spoke highly of when I posted a video of him last year was Eddie Giuliani.
Oh, Giuliani was a jewel. Now, when Giuliani bought his house, he had all kinds of things going on. He had a wife and teenage daughters, and he'd be training at the gym, and he'd get a telephone call. There used to be, before I purchased the gym, a payphone on the wall at the gym, and Eddie would be getting telephone calls on that payphone from people that he couldn't talk to from his home phone. And but I liked Eddie. He wanted to buy a home, but he didn't have the substance to do it, etc. The background, the credit check, the whole bit. So he suddenly became an employee of Gold's Gym. And when the credit reporting agency called in about that, Waller and I were set. Waller answered the phone. Waller says, "Well, let me connect you to our HR department." The person on the other end of the phone wouldn't know that Gold's Gym's this little place, Pacific Avenue. So I waited a few seconds, answered the phone. Why, yes, and it was about Eddie. Whatever Eddie had said, that's correct. He's been here several years as an employee, and I might add that he's one of our best employees. He has a long future here. Anyway, he got the house. That house cost him, I think, less than $30,000 at the time, maybe $20,000. And after his death, I think it sold for $1.2 million or something. So it was a nest egg for him. But other than that, he made his money in a lot of different ways.
Okay. But he seemed, but he was a nice guy, it sounds like.
Oh, he's a good guy. Yeah. Whatever a guy did, as long as, if they were nice to me and vice versa, whatever they did, I don't care about. Yeah.
Were there any fights at Gold's? I mean, you heard there's a story of Arnold. I think Rick Drayson told a story where Arnold got in a fight with someone. But were there fights at all at Gold's that you remember?
The only thing that comes close to a fight that I recall was at the 2nd Street Gym. The only one, literally the only one, anything like that, because it was all a jolly atmosphere. Anyway, Cal Skolak was bullying some member in the back of the gym. I want that plate, or something similar. Waller must have had a bad day. But Waller goes back and pops him on the nose. And that ended that discussion. That was the only fight I'm aware of.
Okay. What?
Oh, no, there was one. If you want to call it a fight. When Joe was haggling over the $50 he owed Pete Grimkowski for an article that Joe put Pete's name on an article, Joe was back in the locker room on 2nd Street with Pete and a couple other guys. And Pete just couldn't take it anymore. He threw Joe against the wall. And that left a big mark in the wall where the drywall had indented.
Wow.
So, me loving to give Joe the business, I drew a circle around the indentation wall with an arrow. Joe Weider's head hit here.
You could probably cut that out and sell it on eBay.
That's probably good.
Joe's.
Now, Cal got into a physical altercation, I believe, with Joe.
Yeah, that's a story.
Joe's office.
Yeah,
over the photos.
Yeah.
Again, Joe, I don't know. Well, I do know. He was just tight with $1. He was a millionaire many times over by that point, but he still couldn't drop those old habits. And he was trying to skate away from paying for photos.
Yes, I've heard that story, and he's told it on some podcast. Now he hasn't told it, but some who told it. But it was told on Jim Hanson's podcast and some other places where he grabs the photos and they try to stop
wrestling around.
But but you never you always got along. I mean, it sounds like you guys ribbed Joe, but you did respect him or got along with him, and it sounds like that's kind of the same as many of the guys.
I don't know. Apparently, I had a different relationship with Joe. I tease him and stuff, but eventually, we essentially went into business together, and I never had Joe tell me anything that he wouldn't follow through on. He was always perfectly honest as far as I could observe with me.
I don't remember this name when I was doing my research, but it was under some of the Dr. C.F. Smith, I think, is someone you mentioned online.
C.F. Smith. Yeah, he was.
He was a bodybuilder,
American competitor, MD. Yeah.
Some people put him as one of the stranger participants in goals.
Yeah, I've heard that. I think what it is when you start talking about stranger competitors at golds, it depends on which direction you're looking. You can find them anywhere. But yeah, CF was a doctor. I think he worked for Kaiser at that time, but he trained. As a matter of fact, he was the one that Countryman and I wanted to in place as chairman of the NPC.
Oh,
but he declined.
So that's went to Mannion.
Yeah, that's right. Then we had to get somebody, and we managed.
We'll get to that story next time. What about I know you mentioned this a little in the past, but just to get on the record, also David Carter, or I don't know if that was his real name, but he wrote the Iron Game book, and you've said that you never read it.
Yeah. No.
We said he's a weird, strange character.
Him the missing link. We used to call David the missing link because he had this real strange, delivery, and he walked sort of like an old man hunched over, and so we call him the missing link. Everybody's got to have a name.
What do they call you?
To my face or behind my back?
I
don't know. But anyway, the Link was quite a character. He came out from the East Coast, had just his duffel bag and this old truck. I think it was one of the smaller types with a whatever the back end hood sort of thing is, where you could sleep inside and all.
Okay.
And he'd park at the gym, and he did his. I don't know. I gave him his first real job, I think, by being the guard at the studio that I owned.
Wow.
And the rat, he just couldn't leave stuff alone. What he did one night, he had an opening at the top of the studio, 40-foot high, 42 feet high studio. He entered through the top to snoop around. Well, what did that do? He just, who knows what he was going to do. But anyway, entered through the top. Well, I get a call.
And he's sneaking in?
He had his truck parked outside, which I said, yeah, park out in the docks where we put together scenes, etc. In the carpenter's area. And he parked there, and I said, fine, that's fine. Well, one night, so he sneaks in the studio. It's all locked up through the top. And I get a call in the middle of the night. Someone is, the alarm, essentially. He didn't realize there were alarms. The alarm's gone off. It didn't take long to put two and two together.
He's like stealing equipment or something?
Probably, yeah. He just always had his eyes open. David eventually wound up with his throat cut.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, he was one of the early guys at the beach. He evidently crossed the wrong person because the police found him. His throat in his apartment had been cut.
Wow, that's horrible.
Another guy, Captain Bill Brieger was his name. He had the best proportion symmetry of anybody I have ever seen.
What's his name? Bill what?
Bill Brieger. Captain Bill is what we called him. You wouldn't know him.
Yeah.
Because he didn't train at the gym. He trained down at the weight pen.
Okay.
But all the guys in the gym knew him because we'd all go down and lay on the beach, get something. But anyway, Bill's another one. He was in one of these companionship relationships.
Yeah.
He was supported. The guy apparently that he was staying with got upset about something. Anyway, Steve Neese, a bodybuilding writer. I don't know if you know that.
I remember the name.
We used to call him the giant blonde Adonis because he looked so hideous. He just thought he was Arnold when he looked in the mirror.
He's a bodybuilder too, though. He wasn't just
bodybuilder, yeah. But anyway, the Adonis bangs on the door one day, and Bill's not answering, so Adonis managed to get in.
He had long hair.
Yeah, times curly blonde.
I feel like I don't know. I have a picture in my head for a magazine cover. Was he on a magazine covers or
the Adonis or Captain Bill?
Steve
Neese.
Steve Neese.
He would have never been good enough for his body to be on a cover.
Okay,
no one would buy that. No one would buy that issue. But anyway, the Adonis gets into Bill's office, and this is the downside of making your living that way. There are a lot of it emotionally estranged from reality people. Anyway, his supporter shot him in the back of the head.
Jesus.
And so, but I think he went to jail for 3 to 5 years because they called it domestic disturbance.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway, those are the bad sides.
Yeah, those are the bad sides.
Fun sides, neutral sides, and I worry most about all the guys that came to California on Weider's bait that muscles equal success, and this is a land of milk and honey. And when it didn't turn out, they had nothing left.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that always was a problem.
And
they had run for their home communities because they had nothing going.
And you were, I wouldn't say you, maybe not unique, but definitely different than most of them in that, you didn't have anything going either, but you somehow turned it. You got there and you turned it even before. I mean, between the real estate, going to law school, getting golds built up, the Dakota career and money and all your contacts, you were obviously a different breed than them, but you still were friends with them. You were still like bodybuilders. You still like the bodybuilding community.
One of my friends that used to watch my back, so to speak. You probably don't know the name Tookie Williams, but Tookie Williams was the originator of the Crips. He was charged with a number of murders. I think at one point they stated 78 people he had murdered.
Oh my God.
And but he and I,
he's your buddy.
Yeah, we'd go over to Guadalajara, a Mexican restaurant across from the gym.
So you trained at Gold's also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, here's the way the bodybuilding community turns around. This was in the New York Times. Tookie said that Arnold once walked up to him. Sounds like something Arnold would do. And said, "Oh, you got huge arms." Tookie did have huge arms. But later on, who had the arms to pull the switch when they electrocuted Tukey? Arnold. Arnold was governor.
Really?
Oh yeah,
My God.
we were trying to get him to, not we, other people in the community were trying to get him to
Pardon.
commute or pardon the
Wow.
death penalty. But yeah, Arnold wound up. This was,
That's
I think, the early 2000s, where the New York Times mentioned that Arnold's old workout buddy
wow.
got
That's
juice.
that is a twist of fate.
So Golds was integral to a lot of different things beyond that little gym.
Yeah. But so we got a picture of it. Couple of just quick. I want to, and maybe this is just a Joe Rourke asked this question. It's not that related, but he wanted to ask it. So, were there any weightlifters that ever came there? As it became a mecca, not just bodybuilders, but weightlifters. He wanted to know if like Paul Anderson or any of the other famous weightlifters time ever stopped by there.
No, we not famous. I did sponsor in the back of the Second Street Gym developmental lifting meets, Olympic lifting meets, along with a fellow named John Askham, who was an Olympic official at that time, lifting official.
Ask him. Was that hmm, was his middle? Was it JV? Ask him.
Could be.
There was a
He
guy on the maybe 20 years ago on the internet, and he had a website, and he was helping.
that would have been him then.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
he
yeah,
passed away maybe 15 years ago, but he had,
yeah.
and
But
he had.
John was another guy. We can talk about that later. That really helped Golds. He didn't realize it, but he did.
How did he help Golds?
Well, he came to me in '76 when the AAU
Oh, so he was part of that. Okay.
and the NPC were splitting. Well, they had to do that on the local level too, when
Okay.
the AAU had split up into different organizations. Well, the local level was conducted by John Askham. Now,
Okay.
the Olympic lifters didn't like it at all. They wanted to think, hey, we can't have them taking our revenue for our Olympic sports as awful
Yeah,
bodybuilders.
yeah.
So Askham came to me, would you sponsor the 76 Mr. California
Ah,
contest?
so he was the one that brought that.
He
Yeah.
was the one that brought it to me. And I said, oh, sure. I wasn't interested, honestly, wasn't interested in promoting the big contests or anything else at
Yeah.
that point.
The reason
It
I
all
know,
came
like,
after that.
he had that website, and there was a young strongman at the time, early 2000s, who also passed away young. But he was like his coach. And he also had a website based like the garage cable, like a cable system, it was like a spotting system where you attached a bar to like squat racks to train at home safely without a power. I don't know. He had this website,
Yeah, he had that
early
kind of stuff. Yeah.
2000s.
He
And
was
the reason
really
I looked
into
over
it.
there is I actually have so I've been doing this like 25 years, and at the time I knew he passed away and the website was closing, and I think I printed it out and I just had it on my shelf for 20 years, his website, because it was at the time there wasn't a lot of different options and it was interesting at the time, but that's how
Well,
I
anyway, to cut
it,
that story short,
yeah.
ask him. I had a sanction, legal sanction. Well, the weightlifting crew, there were more of them, said, and they tried to revoke the sanction for Gold
Yeah.
to sponsor the cow. Well, that just ticked me off. That was my initiation into getting into bodybuilding politics.
I think that is a good place to stop
Wow.
because we're going to get into all that, and I'll set the scene a little bit of that, then we'll go into the different how you got involved in that.
Okay.
But I think that's a good place to stop. I think we've seen the early years. We saw your early life. We saw how you got into, Dakota and all that stuff. We saw how it's connected and how you've built up Golds. Hopefully, we portrayed a picture of that you find accurate of what Golds was like at the time. And I think it's been a real great journey so far. Thank you for
Good.
sharing all this stuff. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. I love it, and I love how candid you've been. And I think we should continue for the next part. We'll figure out a time. But
Okay, let's do that. And since I'm assuming we're cut now, I mean, as far as you're going to plan.
do you have any last
Well,
words you want to say for today?
oh no, I was going to say, my life continued after leaving Gold. That's all. Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna do that too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
educationally, every which
We're
way.
going. We're gonna go there also, buddy. All right, Ken. Well, I'll talk to you. We'll talk online, we'll email, and
And
we'll.
wear one of the old versions of the Gold.
I
Shirt.
well, I wore one last time before where it was the
I
original Gold
noticed.
Gym, and then I switched it. I thought about wearing the same one to look like we didn't have a problem, but I was like, it's fine.
Okay.
But I don't know if I have. Maybe I gotta look. I got a lot of this stuff.
Okay. Okay.
But it's been a pleasure, Ken. I will talk to you
I
later.
appreciate talking with you.
Thanks so
See you
much.
soon.
See you soon. Bye bye.